Nero Wolfe and the Keeper of Beasts. It was a Wednesday in late October when the man who kept wild things in cages came to tell us he was dying. Not dying in the medical sense, though. At 63, with his pallor and trembling hands, Bertram Ashford looked like he'd made peace with mortality some years back. No, he was dying in the way that matters to men of obsession. His life's work was being systematically destroyed, and he couldn't stop it. I was at my desk in the office, catching up on correspondence while Nero Wolfe conducted his morning conference with Beauty. That's what he called his daily 2 hours with the orchids, 10 to noon, up in the plant rooms on the roof, where he communed with Cattleya and Phalaenopsis, while the rest of New York hustled and sweat below. It was 11:15, which meant I had 45 minutes of peace before the elevator would descend, and a seventh of a ton of genius would settle behind the desk to read the morning mail and complain about the state of the world. The brownstone was quiet, in that particular way that means everyone's exactly where they should be. Fritz was in the kitchen preparing lunch. I could smell something with tarragon that made my mouth water. Through the office door I could see Caesar and Mars sprawled in the front hall like a pair of black and tan sphinxes, while Apollo paced his usual patrol route between the front door and the kitchen. Minerva was upstairs, probably sleeping on the landing where she could monitor all 3 floors. Diana had vanished into whatever interdimensional pocket she occupied when not streaking through the house like a missile. And Loyal, the brick-red pit bull with the white blaze and the notched ear, was under my desk, his warm weight against my feet, snoring softly. The dogs had become part of the brownstone's architecture over the past year. Wolfe claimed they were insurance against disruption, which was rich coming from a man who'd installed them specifically because disruption found us, whether we wanted it or not. The truth was simpler. Wolfe had discovered that dogs, unlike people, understood the value of routine. They didn't argue. They didn't whine. They simply existed in a state of alert calm that appealed to his Montenegrin soul. Caesar lifted his massive head when the doorbell rang. Mars was on his feet before the chime finished. Apollo materialized from the kitchen hallway, ears pricked. Under my desk, Loyal shifted but didn't wake. He'd learned to distinguish between routine callers and threats, and the tentative press of that bell suggested no danger. I checked my watch, 11:17. We weren't expecting anyone. Through the one-way glass panel in the front door, I could see a thin man in an expensive but rumpled suit, holding a leather portfolio like it contained the crown jewels. His hair was silver, carefully combed. His face was narrow and intelligent, with the kind of bone structure that photographs well but ages poorly. He looked like money that had started to worry. I opened the door 6 inches. Caesar moved to my left shoulder, Mars to my right. Yes? The man blinked at the Dobermans. I'm here to see Mr. Nero Wolfe. My name is Bertram Ashford. I don't have an appointment, but I'm prepared to pay his fee, whatever it is. Mr. Wolfe sees people by appointment only. His schedule is full for the next 2 weeks. This was a lie. Wolfe's schedule was as empty as a banker's conscience. But the routine was sacred. Refuse first, negotiate later, and never let a client think they're doing us a favor. Ashford's hand shook as he reached into his jacket. Caesar rumbled low in his chest. The hand froze. Easy, I said. What are you reaching for? A check. I have a certified check for $15,000. That's just the retainer. His voice cracked slightly. Please, someone is going to die, Mr. Goodwin. Possibly several people, and I think one of them might be me. I looked at him. Really looked. The trembling wasn't fear, or not just fear. It was exhaustion, the kind that settles into your bones when you've been running on adrenaline so long you've forgotten what sleep feels like. His eyes were red-rimmed. There was a coffee stain on his collar that a man like him would never normally tolerate. Wait here, I said. I closed the door and went to the kitchen. Fritz was stirring something that smelled like heaven's waiting room. Fritz, we have a live one on the doorstep. Scared, rich, and waving money. He'll need coffee when I bring him in. Fritz nodded without turning from his sauce. The good cups. The bulletproof ones. I climbed the stairs to the plant rooms. The elevator would have been faster, but I needed the 30 seconds to think. 15,000 as a retainer meant real money behind it. Either that or desperation with a blank check. Either way, Wolfe would be interested. We'd been idle for 3 weeks, and idle Wolfe was like a caged tiger, majestic but dangerous to everyone nearby. The plant rooms were humid and fragrant, a jungle suspended 40 feet above Manhattan. Wolfe stood beside a bench of oncidium hybrids, wearing his oversized yellow smock, his hands delicate as a surgeon's among the blooms. Theodore Horstman, the orchid nurse, was misting the specimen plants with the concentration of a man diffusing a bomb. "A man named Bertram Ashford is at the door," I said. 15,000 retainer. Says people are going to die. He looks like he hasn't slept in a week." Wolfe didn't look up from the orchid. "Did you get his card?" "He didn't offer one. He offered a certified check." "Then he's serious." Wolfe adjusted a bloom with one finger, studying the angle. "Or seriously foolish. What does he want?" "He didn't say, but he looks like a man who's used to being in control and has recently discovered he's not." Wolfe stepped back, examining the plant from a distance. "Very well. The front room. Coffee and preliminary conversation. I'll be down at noon." Which meant I had 43 minutes to extract the story, determine if it was worth Wolfe's time, and decide whether we were about to get tangled in something that would disrupt the sacred routines of the brownstone. It was exactly the kind of preliminary screening I was good at, and that Wolfe relied upon so he could maintain the fiction that he never actively sought clients. Back downstairs, I opened the door. Ashford stood exactly where I'd left him, clutching his portfolio like a shield. "Mr. Wolfe will see you at noon. Come in. Coffee's coming." His relief was almost painful to watch. He stepped over the threshold, and Caesar and Mars moved aside with the precision of an honor guard. Ashford noticed. He'd have been blind not to, and something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe, or envy. "Impressive animals," he said quietly, watching Caesar settle back into position. "They're part of the furniture. This way." I led him to the front room, the smaller, less formal receiving area where we conducted preliminary interviews. It had comfortable chairs, decent light, and most importantly, no view of Wolfe's desk, which he considered his throne and wasn't about to share with strangers until they'd proven themselves worthy. Ashford sat gingerly, placing his portfolio on his lap. Loyal padded in behind us and settled near the doorway, watching the stranger with calm brown eyes. Ashford noticed him too. "A pit bull," he said. "Red nose, beautiful specimen, good bone structure, excellent musculature. Is he a rescue?" "Found him in the woods upstate. He adopted us." "Lucky for both of you." Something in Ashford's voice suggested he knew what he was talking about. "Most people wouldn't give a pit a chance, especially not one with a notched ear," suggests fighting, to the ignorant. "Most people are ignorant about most things," I said. "You know dogs." "I know animals." He set the portfolio aside, and some of the tension left his shoulders. "All kinds. It's my life's work, or it was, before someone decided to destroy it." Fritz arrived with coffee in the bulletproof cups, actually leaded crystal, virtually indestructible, and heavy enough to use as a weapon if necessary. Wolfe had ordered them after a client once threw his coffee in a fit of rage. The cups survived. The client's relationship with us did not. Ashford wrapped both hands around the cup, absorbing its warmth. "Thank you. This is excellent." "Fritz Brenner," I said. "The finest chef in New York. You'll get no argument from anyone in this house on that point." "I believe it." Ashford sipped, closed his eyes. When he opened them again, some of the exhaustion had receded, replaced by focus. "Mr. Goodwin, I need to tell you something before Mr. Wolfe arrives. I need you to understand what you're agreeing to investigate." "I'm listening." "My name is Bertram Ashford. I'm the founder and director of the Ashford Conservatory for Exotic Fauna. We're located on 200 acres in Westchester County, about 40 miles north of here. We house over 300 animals from 6 continents, everything from Sumatran tigers to poison dart frogs. We're not a zoo. We're a conservation center and research facility dedicated to preserving endangered species and studying animal behavior in controlled environments. I made notes on my pad. Controlled environments? You mean cages? His jaw tightened. I mean habitats designed to replicate their natural environments as closely as possible. We're not a circus, Mr. Goodwin. We're scientists. No offense intended. Go on. 3 weeks ago, one of our keepers died. A young woman named Patricia Drummond. She was found in the tiger habitat, mauled to death. The investigation concluded it was an accident. She'd violated protocol, entered the enclosure without following safety procedures. The state reviewed our operations and found no negligence on our part. He paused, staring into his coffee. But it wasn't an accident. You know this how? Because Patricia was our most experienced keeper. She'd worked with big cats for 12 years. She knew those tigers better than she knew her own family. She would never have violated protocol. Never. His hands were shaking again. And because 3 days ago, someone tried to release our bears, not just open their gates, someone disabled the emergency lock system and tampered with the feeding mechanism. If our night watchman hadn't discovered it, those bears would have been loose on the property with 20 staff members still working. Did you report it? To the county police, yes. They investigated, found no evidence of tampering, said the locks were old, the mechanism probably failed naturally. His voice turned bitter. They think I'm paranoid. An old man seeing conspiracies because he can't accept that his facility had a fatal accident. But you don't think it was an accident? I know it wasn't, because yesterday morning I received this. He opened his portfolio with trembling fingers and extracted a single sheet of paper, protected in a clear plastic sleeve. He handed it to me. The paper was expensive, cream-colored, unmarked except for a single sentence typed in the center. The beasts you cage will be your judges. No signature, no return address, just that one line, stark and threatening. Poetic, I said. Any idea who sent it? That's why I'm here, Mr. Goodwin. I have 6 possibilities, and I don't know which one wants me dead. I raised an eyebrow. 6 suspects before we've even taken the case. That's efficient. Who are they? Ashford pulled a folder from his portfolio and opened it on the coffee table. Inside were 6 photographs, each clipped to a page of typed notes. First, Claudia Marsh. She was Patricia's direct supervisor, head of our mammal division. They had a professional rivalry. Claudia thought Patricia was reckless. Patricia thought Claudia was overcautious. When Patricia died, Claudia was promoted to deputy director. She benefits directly from Patricia's death. Motive, advancement, what else? Second, Dr. Nathan Grove, our staff veterinarian. Brilliant man, but he's been pushing for months to euthanize several of our older, non-breeding animals. I refused. He thinks I'm sentimental and unscientific. We've had several bitter arguments. He called me a sentimental fool playing God with creatures that should be allowed to die with dignity. Motive, professional disagreement. Next. Third, Leonard Price. He owns the property adjacent to ours, 300 acres of woodland. He's wanted to buy my land for 5 years to develop it into luxury housing. I've refused every offer. He's made it clear that he considers me an obstacle to progress, and that obstacles, in his words, eventually fall. Motive, money and property. That's classic. Next. Fourth, Isabel Reyes. She runs the Northeast Animal Liberation Front. She's protested our facility for 2 years, claiming we're no better than a prison. She's been arrested twice for trespassing on our grounds. She believes all animals should be free, regardless of whether they'd survive in the wild. She's radical, and she's dangerous. Motive, ideology. Next. Fifth, Roger Ashford, my nephew. He stands to inherit the conservatory when I die. He's never shown any interest in conservation. He's a day trader in the city, lives in a penthouse, drives a Ferrari. But the land is worth $20 million, minimum. If something happens to me, he gets it all. Family, money, always messy. And the sixth? Ashford's face darkened. Dr. Helena Caspar. She was my partner for 15 years, personally and professionally. We built the conservatory together. We were engaged to be married. 3 years ago, I discovered she'd been falsifying research data to secure grants. I confronted her. She denied it. I brought evidence to the board. She was forced to resign. He closed his eyes. She told me I'd destroyed her life, that she'd spent 15 years building something beautiful with me, and I'd burned it down over irrelevant details. She said I'd regret choosing principle over loyalty. I studied the 6 photos, 6 people, 6 motives, and somewhere in that collection someone who'd killed once and was willing to kill again. Mr. Ashford, I said carefully, if what you're saying is true, if someone murdered Patricia Drummond and is targeting your facility, why come to a private detective? Why not go to the FBI or hire a security firm? He looked at me with something like despair. Because I don't just need protection, Mr. Goodwin. I need proof. The police think I'm paranoid. A security firm would treat it as vandalism. But if I'm right, someone is killing people and threatening to release 300 dangerous animals into the suburbs of New York. I need someone who can think, who can see patterns, who can prove what happened before someone else dies. He leaned forward. I've read about Nero Wolfe. I know what he's capable of. I need his mind, and I'm prepared to pay whatever it costs. I checked my watch. 11:58. Right on schedule. I heard the elevator descending. A soft hydraulic whisper, followed by the mechanical click of the door opening. You're about to meet him, I said. One piece of advice. Don't waste his time with flattery. Don't ask him to leave this building. And for God's sake, don't touch anything on his desk. Ashford straightened his tie. Understood. Nero Wolfe entered the office like a force of nature contained in human form. He's a seventh of a ton, as I mentioned, and he moves with the deliberate grace of a man who knows exactly how much space he occupies and refuses to apologize for it. His face is round, his eyes are hooded and perpetually skeptical, and his voice, when he chooses to use it, could command armies or seduce opera audiences. He circled behind his desk, settled into his custom-made chair with a sigh of satisfaction, and surveyed Bertram Ashford the way a jeweler examines a stone of uncertain quality. Mr. Ashford, Archie tells me you're prepared to overpay for my services. Ashford didn't flinch. I'm prepared to pay fairly for the only detective in New York capable of solving my problem. Flattery. Wolfe's eyes shifted to me. Did you warn him? I did. Good. Wolfe returned his attention to Ashford. Mr. Goodwin has explained your situation. A death you believe was murder. Acts of sabotage disguised as accidents. A threatening letter. 6 suspects with varying motives. Tell me, which one do you believe is guilty? I don't know. That's why I'm here. Incorrect. You simply don't trust your own judgment. Wolfe leaned back, fingers steepled. You've worked with animals your entire life, Mr. Ashford. You understand instinct. You observe behavior. You recognize patterns. So I ask again, which one? Ashford's face went pale. Dr. Caspar, Helena. But I don't trust myself on that question. We were engaged. She hates me. I might be seeing guilt where there's only bitterness. Possibly. Or possibly you're seeing clearly for the first time. Wolfe studied him. Tell me about Patricia Drummond. Not her qualifications, her nature. What kind of woman was she? Brave, dedicated, stubborn. She believed animals deserved respect, not just care. Ashford's voice softened. She was the best keeper I ever employed. She understood that every creature, no matter how dangerous, has dignity. Did she have enemies? Patricia. No, everyone respected her. Someone didn't. Wolfe pulled the threatening letter across his desk, examined it through the plastic sleeve. This phrasing, "the beasts you cage will be your judges," suggests someone who views your work as fundamentally immoral. That narrows our suspects. Miss Reyes, the activist, would write such a thing. But it's too literary for a radical. Radicals favor direct language. He set it aside. No, this was written by someone educated, someone who understands metaphor, someone who wants you to know they consider you guilty of something. Guilty of what? Playing God, as your veterinarian suggested, caging wild things, imposing your will on creatures that evolved to be free. Wolfe's eyes were half closed now, his mind working through the puzzle. Your nephew wants money. Your neighbor wants land. Your supervisor wants advancement. Your veterinarian wants change. Your activist wants liberation. But only one person has accused you of betrayal. Only one person believes you violated a sacred principle by choosing rules over loyalty. Ashford's voice was barely a whisper. Helena. Possibly, or possibly someone who shares her philosophy. Wolfe opened his eyes. I'll take your case, Mr. Ashford. My fee is $25,000, plus expenses. If I determine who killed Patricia Drummond and prove it beyond doubt, you'll pay an additional $25,000. If I fail, you pay only my time and Archie's field expenses. That's more than fair. It's extortionate, but you're desperate. Wolfe reached for his desk drawer, extracted a standard contract. Sign here. Archie will witness. 5 minutes later, Bertram Ashford left the brownstone $50,000 poorer and considerably less pale. He'd promised to send complete files on all 6 suspects, staff records and security logs from the conservatory. He'd also invited us to visit the facility, an invitation Wolfe had declined with a shudder. Archie will represent me, he'd said. I don't travel to observe caged animals. They come to me, or we work with documents. Now, alone in the office, Wolfe sat with his fingers steepled, staring at nothing. Thoughts? I asked. The letter is wrong, he said quietly. Wrong? How? It's syntax. The beasts you cage will be your judges. Future tense. Whoever wrote this plans something. Something imminent. Something worse than what's already happened. He looked at me. We don't have much time, Archie. Then we'd better start moving. You'd better start moving. I'll be with my orchids. He stood, heading for the elevator. Call Inspector Kramer. Ask him about the original investigation into Patricia Drummond's death. I want to know what they found that they didn't tell Mr. Ashford. I watched him disappear into the elevator, then picked up the phone. We were in it now. Someone who killed once would kill again. And somewhere in Westchester County, 300 wild animals waited in their cages, while somewhere in the shadows, someone planned to turn beasts into judges. I dialed Kramer's number and waited. This was going to be complicated. Inspector Lionel T. Kramer of Manhattan Homicide arrived at the brownstone at 3:15 that afternoon, which was earlier than I'd expected, but not surprising given what I'd asked him. You want to know about a death in Westchester County? He'd growled over the phone. That's not my jurisdiction, Goodwin. But you know people who know people, and if there's something hinky about it, you'd want to know, especially if it connects to something bigger. Silence on the other end, broken by the sound of Kramer's eternal cigar being worried between his teeth. I'll make some calls. If there's anything worth knowing, I'll come by. And here he was, 3 hours later, looking exactly like he always did. Rumpled grey suit, tired eyes, and an expression that suggested the world had disappointed him one too many times, but he was still fighting the good fight anyway. Caesar and Mars met him at the door with their usual precision, but their tails were relaxed. They knew Kramer. He'd been coming to the brownstone for years, sometimes as adversary, sometimes as reluctant ally, always as a man who respected competence, even when it made his job harder. Inspector, I said, opening the door wide. Coffee? If it's Fritz's, yes. If it's yours, I'll pass. You wound me. We settled in the office. Wolfe was still upstairs with his orchids. He'd stay there until 6, when beer and the world's problems would reclaim his attention. For now it was just Kramer and me, and the inspector looked troubled. Fritz brought coffee. Kramer wrapped his hands around the cup, the bulletproof one again, and sighed. All right, Goodwin. I called a buddy in the Westchester County Sheriff's Office, asked about Patricia Drummond. He remembered the case, said it was clean, open and shut. But he also said the lead investigator wasn't happy about closing it. Deputy named Kowalski, good cop by the book, doesn't like loose ends. He wrote in his report that the evidence supported accidental death, but his note suggested he had questions. I leaned forward. What kind of questions? The kind he couldn't answer without proof. The kind that make you wonder if you're seeing things, or if something's off. Kramer pulled out a small notebook, flipped it open. Patricia Drummond died on October 9th. She was found in the tiger habitat at 6:45 a.m. by another keeper who came to start morning feeding. According to the autopsy, she'd been dead approximately 4 hours, sometime between 2 and 3 a.m. What was she doing in the habitat at 2 a.m.? That's question 1. According to the facility director, your client, Ashford, nobody should have been in that habitat outside of daylight hours unless there was an emergency. There was no emergency logged, no alarm, nothing. So either she violated protocol or something drew her there. Right. Kowalski's notes say he pressed Ashford on this. Ashford insisted Patricia would never break protocol. But the physical evidence was clear. She'd used her own keycard to open the habitat doors. She'd disabled the safety interlocks. She'd walked in alone. No witnesses, no backup. Either she was suicidal, criminally negligent, or had a reason nobody could identify. Kowalski believed the third option. He did, but he couldn't prove it. And here's where it gets interesting. Kramer consulted his notes again. The tigers that killed her, 2 Sumatran tigers, male and female, named Raja and Sari, they were sedated, both of them. When the keeper found Patricia's body, the tigers were barely conscious, lying in the back of the habitat. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Sedated by whom? Unknown. The on-site veterinarian, Dr. Nathan Grove, said he hadn't sedated them. There was no record of sedation in the logs, but the blood work from both tigers showed elevated levels of ketamine, consistent with standard veterinary sedation. Someone drugged those tigers, Goodwin, and then Patricia Drummond walked into their habitat and got killed anyway. That's impossible. If the tigers were sedated, they couldn't have mauled her to death. Exactly. Kramer's expression was grim. Kowalski pushed on this. He wanted a full forensic investigation, but the county medical examiner ruled it consistent with tiger attack, massive trauma, multiple bite and claw marks, death by exsanguination and tissue damage, no defensive wounds on her hands, which suggested she either didn't see it coming or couldn't fight back, or was already dead when the tigers were brought in to make it look like an attack. That's what Kowalski thought. But here's the problem. There were no other injuries, no blunt force trauma, no strangulation marks, no poison in her system, just tiger damage. Lots of it. Kramer shook his head. The ME said that if she was killed by someone else, they'd have had to perfectly replicate a tiger attack so precisely that even a forensic pathologist couldn't tell the difference. That kind of expertise. It doesn't exist outside of fiction. I sat back, thinking. Unless the person who killed her knew exactly how a tiger kills, knew the bite patterns, the claw marks, the sequence of attack. Someone who worked with tigers professionally, Kramer said quietly. Someone who could drug the animals, stage the scene, and make it look perfect. How many people at the conservatory fit that description? According to my buddy, 4. Patricia herself, obviously not the killer. Dr. Grove, the veterinarian. Claudia Marsh, the supervisor who replaced Patricia. And Bertram Ashford, the director who owns the facility. Ashford hired us. He wouldn't hire us if he were guilty. Wouldn't be the first time a killer hired a detective to cover his tracks. Make himself look like the concerned victim. Kramer fixed me with a hard stare. You sure about this client, Goodwin? Wolfe is. That's good enough for me. Wolfe's been wrong before. Not often. Kramer grunted, acknowledging the point. All right, there's more. After Drummond's death, Kowalski requested permission to continue investigating. He wanted to interview staff, check facility records, look into motive. The county attorney shut him down, said there was no evidence of foul play, the facility was fully cooperative, and continuing the investigation would expose the county to lawsuits if they implied negligence without proof. Case closed. Move on.
Convenient for someone.
Very. But Kowalski kept his notes. When I called him this morning, he said if Wolfe's involved, he wants to know what you find. He thinks someone got away with murder, and it's been eating at him. We'll keep him informed. What about the recent sabotage attempts? The bear enclosure tampering? That I didn't hear about. When did it happen? 3 days ago. Ashford reported it to local police. They found no evidence of tampering. Kramer's eyes narrowed. Who investigated? I don't know. I'll find out. Do that. Because if it's the same department that closed Drummond's case, they might have a reason to keep sweeping things under the rug. He drained his coffee, stood. Listen, Goodwin, I don't like coincidences. A suspicious death followed by sabotage, followed by threatening letters. That's not coincidence. That's escalation. Someone's building toward something. Wolfe thinks so too. Then tell him to work fast. Because in my experience, when someone escalates like this, they're not finished. They're just getting started. I walked Kramer to the door. Caesar and Mars flanked us, ever watchful. At the threshold, Kramer paused. One more thing. Kowalski mentioned that Patricia Drummond had a notebook. She carried it everywhere, a leather journal where she recorded observations about animal behavior. After she died, her family requested it as a keepsake. The conservatory said they couldn't find it, claimed she must have left it at home. But she didn't. Her mother swore Patricia never went anywhere without it, said it was like a part of her. Kramer met my eyes. If you find that notebook, you might find something worth killing for. He left. I closed the door and stood in the hallway, thinking. A staged death made to look like a tiger attack. Sedated animals. A missing notebook. And somewhere in all of it, 6 suspects with 6 motives, while 300 animals waited in cages that someone wanted opened. Loyal patted over and leaned against my leg, warm and solid. I scratched behind his notched ear. Yeah, boy, I know. This one's going to be messy. The elevator descended at precisely 6 o'clock. Wolfe emerged, made his way to his desk, and surveyed the office as if he'd been gone for weeks instead of hours. "Where's my beer?" "Right here." Fritz had anticipated him, as always, arriving with a tray bearing 2 chilled bottles of Remers and the proper glass. Wolfe poured, drank and sighed with satisfaction. "Kramer was here," I said. "The Drummond death was suspicious. The tigers were drugged. And there's a missing notebook that might contain something worth killing for." Wolfe's eyes opened. "Drugged?" I gave him the full account, Kowalski's notes, the sedated tigers, the impossible staging of the attack, the Emmy's ruling. Wolfe listened without interrupting, his fingers drumming slowly on the desktop. When I finished, he sat in silence for a long moment. "Archie," he said finally, "tomorrow you'll go to the conservatory. You'll examine the tiger habitat. You'll interview staff. You'll learn everything there is to know about how that facility operates. And you'll find that notebook. Tall order for 1 day. Then take 2. But I want answers. This death was staged by someone with intimate knowledge of animal behavior. Someone who could predict exactly how sedated tigers would respond when they woke to find a body in their territory." His eyes were cold now. "That's not just murder, Archie. That's artistry. And someone that skilled won't stop at 1 death." "You think they'll kill again?" "I think they already have plans to. That letter the beasts you cage will be your judges. That's not a threat. It's a promise." He reached for his beer. "Someone intends to release those animals. All of them. And when they do, people will die. Many people." I felt the weight of that settle over the room. 300 animals. Predators. Venomous creatures. Animals bred in captivity. Who didn't know how to hunt, but still had instincts and teeth and claws. Released into suburban Westchester. "We need to stop them," I said. "Yes." Wolfe drank deeply. "But first we need to understand them. Why Patricia Drummond? What did she know or see or record that made her death necessary? Find that notebook, Archie. The answer is in there. And if I can't find it, then we'll do this the hard way." He leaned back in his chair. "Tomorrow start with the supervisor, Claudia Marsh. She benefited from Drummond's death. She knows the facility. And if she's guilty, she'll make a mistake when you push her. And if she's not guilty, then one of the other 5 is. We'll eliminate them methodically until only truth remains." He reached for his book, currently a biography of Talleyrand. "Now leave me in peace. I've had enough of murder for 1 evening." I went to my desk and started making notes. Tomorrow I'd visit a place where wild things lived in cages, where someone had killed with the precision of a surgeon and the coldness of a predator. Tomorrow I'd start hunting a killer who understood beasts better than most people understand themselves. It was going to be an interesting week. I left the brownstone at 8, Thursday morning, driving north in the Heron sedan with Caesar riding shotgun and Loyal stretched across the back seat. Wolfe had insisted I take both dogs. For insurance, he'd said, though what kind of insurance he meant wasn't clear. Protection, probably, or intimidation, or possibly just companionship for the drive. The truth was, I didn't mind. Caesar was good company in his alert, silent way, and Loyal had a knack for reading situations that I'd learned to trust. If something felt wrong at the conservatory, the dogs would know before I did. The drive took an hour through autumn countryside, leaves turning bronze and gold under a sky that couldn't decide between grey and blue. The Ashford Conservatory for Exotic Fauna sat at the end of a private road, behind gates that looked more suited to a military installation than a wildlife facility. 10-foot steel fencing topped with angled barriers, security cameras every 30 yards, warning signs in 3 languages. I pulled up to the guard station. A young man in a uniform stepped out, clipboard in hand, and froze when he saw Caesar in the front seat. "Easy," I said. "He's friendly unless you're not. I'm Archie Goodwin, here to see Mr. Ashford. He's expecting me." The guard checked his list, nodded and waved me through. The gates opened with a hydraulic whisper. Beyond them, the conservatory spread out like a small city devoted to the business of keeping wild things contained. The main building was modern stone and glass, surrounded by paths that led to various habitat complexes. I could see the edges of enclosures through the trees, massive structures of concrete and steel and reinforced glass designed to be both humane and unbreakable. In the distance I heard something that might have been a lion's roar, or possibly my imagination. Bertram Ashford met me at the entrance to the administration building. He looked better than he had yesterday. Cleaner shaven, better rested though still carrying tension in his shoulders like a coat he couldn't take off. "Mr. Goodwin, thank you for coming. And you brought friends." "Security," I said. "I hope that's not a problem." "Not at all. Though I should warn you, our animals may react to their presence. We'll need to keep them out of sight lines from certain habitats." He paused, looking at Loyal. "That's a remarkable dog." "He knows it." I let both dogs out. They stayed close, alert but calm. "Where do you want to start?" "I thought the tiger habitat first. That's where Patricia died. Then I'll introduce you to the staff, the ones I mentioned yesterday. They're all here today, I arranged it." "Efficient. Lead the way." We walked through manicured grounds, past enclosures that housed everything from African wild dogs to armor leopards. The facilities were impressive, clean, well-maintained, expensive. Whatever Ashford's faults might be, underfunding his animals wasn't one of them. The tiger habitat was at the northern edge of the property, set back from other enclosures in a grove of old trees. It was enormous, probably 2 acres, including an artificial stream, rock formations, and dense plantings that mimic Southeast Asian jungle. The viewing area was behind glass thick enough to stop a bullet. "This is where we found her," Ashford said quietly, pointing to a section near the stream. Patricia was lying there. Raja and Sari were in the back den, barely conscious. I studied the habitat. Everything looked pristine, peaceful, no signs of violence, no dried blood. The conservatory had cleaned it thoroughly after the death, which was understandable but unfortunate for investigation. "Show me how someone would enter." Ashford led me around to a service entrance, a reinforced steel door with a keycard reader and a numeric pad. "This is the keeper entrance. You need both a valid keycard and a 6-digit code to open it. The code changes weekly. Only authorized keepers have access." "How many authorized keepers?" "For this habitat, 3. Patricia, Claudia Marsh, and myself. Dr. Grove has master access for emergencies, but his card logs every entry." "And on the night Patricia died?" "Her card was used at 2:47 a.m. She entered alone. No other cards were scanned." "What about the code? Could someone have forced her to give it to them?" "It's possible, but there would have been a struggle. There was no sign of that." I examined the door. It was solid, professional, the kind of system you'd see at a high-security facility. No signs of tampering, no scratches around the lock. "What about cameras?" Ashford's face darkened. "That's the strange part. We have cameras covering every habitat entrance, but on that night, the camera for this door malfunctioned. The recording shows static from 2:30 a.m. to 3:15 a.m. Our security company said it was probably a power fluctuation, or someone who knew how to disable it. Deputy Kowalski suggested the same thing, but there was no evidence of tampering with the camera or the power supply. Convenient. I looked at Caesar and Loyal. Both dogs were fixated on the habitat, watching something I couldn't see. "What are they looking at?" Ashford followed my gaze. "The tigers. Raja and Sari are in the back den right now, but they can probably smell your dogs." "And they're not aggressive?" "Not visibly, but they're interested. Tigers are curious creatures, Mr. Goodwin. They notice everything." I walked closer to the viewing glass. In the shadows of the den, I could make out 2 massive shapes, orange and black stripes, barely visible in the dim light. One of them shifted, and I saw eyes watching me. Calm eyes, intelligent eyes. "Tell me about Patricia," I said. "What was she like as a keeper?" "The best I've ever known. Dedicated, fearless, but never reckless. She understood that these animals aren't pets. They're apex predators who tolerate us only as long as we respect them." Ashford's voice softened. "She talked to them, not like people talk to pets, like she was having real conversations. She claimed they understood her tone, her intent, and maybe they did. They certainly responded to her differently than they responded to anyone else." "Did that cause problems with other staff?" "Claudia thought Patricia was too emotionally involved, said it clouded her judgment." Ashford shook his head. "But Patricia's method worked. In 12 years, she never had a serious incident. Not one. Until October 9th. Yes, until then, I turned away from the tigers. I want to see the security logs, every entry and exit for the week before Patricia died. And I want to talk to Dr. Grove. I need to understand how those tigers were sedated." "I'll arrange both. But first, there's something else I need to show you. Ashford's expression was troubled. Yesterday, after I left your office, I received another letter, same style, same paper. He handed me a plastic sleeve containing a second cream-colored page. This one read, "The cage is broken. The beast is free. Judgment comes." When did this arrive? Yesterday afternoon, hand-delivered to my home address, not here at the conservatory. No postmark, no courier service, just left in my mailbox. Your home address? That means someone knows where you live. Yes, and they want me to know they can reach me anywhere. Ashford looked genuinely frightened now. Mr. Goodwin, I'm starting to think this isn't just about destroying the conservatory. I think someone wants me dead. Then we'd better find them before they succeed. Let's talk to your staff. The conference room in the administration building smelled like coffee, anxiety, and barely suppressed hostility. Ashford had assembled his suspects, though he didn't call them that, and they sat around an oval table like defendants waiting for judgment. I'd left Caesar and Loyal outside with a junior keeper who seemed thrilled to have guard dog duty. Through the window, I could see both animals lying in the shade, watchful and calm. Caesar's head tracked every person who passed. Loyal was focused on the building itself, as if he could sense the tension inside. 5 people faced me across that table. Ashford sat at the head, trying to project authority while looking like a man who'd lost control of his own kingdom. I took the opposite end, notepad ready, and studied them one by one. Claudia Marsh sat to Ashford's right, 40s, athletic build, short dark hair going grey at the temples. She wore practical field clothes, cargo pants, work boots, a conservatory polo shirt that had seen better days. Her face was tanned and weathered, with the kind of permanent squint you get from years of working outdoors. She watched me with the wary alertness of someone who'd been interviewed before and hadn't enjoyed it. Dr. Nathan Grove sat beside her, mid-50s, soft around the middle, wearing wire-rimmed glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He had the distracted air of a man more comfortable with animals than people. His hands were scarred in that particular way veterinarians' hands get scarred, small nicks and marks from years of treating creatures that didn't always appreciate the help. Isabel Reyes sat across from them, late 20s, burning with the kind of righteous intensity that either changes the world or crashes against it. She wore a t-shirt with a slogan about animal liberation, her arms covered in tattoos of various creatures. Her hair was shaved on one side, dyed blue-green on the other. She looked at Ashford like he was something that needed to be scraped off her shoe. Leonard Price lounged at the far end, early 60s, expensive suit, the kind of confidence that comes from having money and knowing how to use it. He'd arrived in a Mercedes that probably cost more than most people's houses. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. He looked around the room like he was already calculating property values. Roger Ashford sat slumped in his chair, late 30s, wearing designer clothes that looked slept in. Bertram's nephew had the soft, unfocused look of someone who'd never had to work hard for anything and resented being asked to start now. He checked his phone every 30 seconds, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. The 6th suspect, Dr. Helena Caspar, was notably absent. "Where's Caspar?" I asked Ashford. She declined to attend, said she has no connection to the conservatory anymore and sees no reason to help me. His voice was flat. I expected that. Convenient for her. Claudia Marsh spoke up, her voice sharp. "Can we get started? Some of us have actual work to do. The animals don't care about your investigation. They need to be fed, monitored, and cared for." Of course. I opened my notepad. "Let's talk about Patricia Drummond. Miss Marsh, you were her supervisor. Tell me about her work." Claudia's jaw tightened. Patricia was an excellent keeper. Skilled, knowledgeable, dedicated. She had a gift for understanding animal behavior. But she was reckless. She took unnecessary risks. She anthropomorphized the animals, treated them like they were capable of friendship, loyalty, understanding. They're not. They're wild predators operating on instinct. Claudia leaned forward. I warned her repeatedly that her methods would get her killed. I was right. You think her death was her own fault? I think she violated protocol one too many times, and nature doesn't forgive mistakes. There was no satisfaction in Claudia's voice, just weary resignation. I wish I'd been wrong, but I wasn't. And you were promoted to deputy director after she died. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Claudia's eyes went cold. Are you suggesting I killed her for a promotion? I'm suggesting you benefited from her death. That's a fact, not an accusation. Here's another fact, Mr. Goodwin. I was in Boston that night, attending a conference on captive breeding programs. 200 witnesses, hotel records, and airline receipts. Want to see them? I would, actually. Thank you. She pulled out her phone, fingers flying over the screen. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed with an email containing scanned receipts, photos from the conference, and what looked like a hotel room service bill, time-stamped at 11:47 p.m. on October 8th. Satisfied? Claudia's voice was acid. For now. I turned to Dr. Grove. You're the veterinarian. Tell me about sedating tigers. Grove blinked at me through his glasses. It's a delicate procedure, ketamine-based anesthetic, dosed by weight. Too little, they're agitated. Too much, you risk respiratory failure. It requires experience and precision. How many people here could do it properly? Myself, obviously. Bertram has the training, though he rarely does it himself anymore. Patricia could. She assisted me many times. He paused. Claudia could. In an emergency. She's had the training, though she's not certified. What about Helena Caspar? Helena helped develop our sedation protocols. She could do it in her sleep. Grove's voice turned bitter. Among other things she was good at. You didn't like her. I respected her professionally. Personally. He shrugged. She was brilliant, and she knew it. She treated everyone else like we were amateurs playing at science while she did the real work. Including Bertram. Especially Bertram. She thought he was too sentimental, too focused on conservation rather than research. They fought about it constantly. Near the end, Grove adjusted his glasses. I wasn't sorry when she left. Did Patricia get along with her? They were close, actually. Helena mentored Patricia when she first started here, taught her everything about animal behavior, observation, documentation. Grove frowned. Come to think of it, Patricia was devastated when Helena left. They stayed in touch for a while, but then he trailed off. Then what? Then Patricia stopped mentioning her. Must have been about 6 months before she died. I asked once why they weren't talking anymore, and Patricia just said they'd had a difference of opinion about something important. I made a note. A falling out between mentor and protege. That could be significant. Dr. Grove, were you on site the night Patricia died? No, I was at home. I live about 20 miles from here. I have a small farm where I keep rescue horses. I wasn't called until after they found her body. And you examined the tigers afterward? I did. They were sedated, properly sedated, with the correct dosage for their weight. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. He met my eyes. I didn't do it, Mr. Goodwin. I had no reason to kill Patricia. She was an asset to this facility. Did you argue about euthanizing older animals? Bertram shifted uncomfortably. Grove's expression hardened. I argued for humane end-of-life decisions. Yes. We have several animals who are suffering, elderly, arthritic, in chronic pain. I believe we have an ethical obligation to end that suffering rather than prolonging it for sentimental reasons. His voice took on an edge. Bertram disagrees. He thinks every animal deserves to live out its natural lifespan, regardless of quality of life. We've had heated discussions about it. Heated enough that someone might think you'd benefit from his removal? I'm a veterinarian, Mr. Goodwin. My job is to preserve life, not end it, human or animal. Grove's hands were shaking slightly. I disagreed with Bertram's policies. That doesn't make me a murderer. I turned to Isabel Reyes. She'd been watching the exchange with barely concealed contempt. Miss Reyes, you run the Northeast Animal Liberation Front. Tell me about your relationship with this facility. Relationship? She laughed, sharp and bitter. I don't have a relationship with a prison. I protest it. I expose it. I work to shut it down and free every single animal trapped here. You've been arrested for trespassing. Twice. And I'd do it again. These animals don't belong in cages, Mr. Goodwin. They belong in their natural habitats, living the lives they were meant to live, not performing for tourists or sitting in enclosures so rich people can feel like they're helping. This isn't a zoo, Bertram said quietly. We're a conservation facility. We preserve endangered species. You preserve your own ego, Isabel shot back. You play God, deciding which animals get to breed, which ones get to live, which ones are valuable enough to save. It's speciesism, and it's immoral. Would you release them even if it meant they'd die? I asked. Freedom is worth dying for. Ask any animal, hell, ask yourself. Would you rather live in a comfortable cage or die free? I'll keep that in mind. Where were you the night of October 8th? In jail. I'd been arrested 2 days earlier for chaining myself to the front gates. I was released on October 10th. She smiled coldly. Check with the Westchester County lockup. They'll confirm. Another alibi. I was starting to see a pattern. Everyone had a reason to kill Patricia or destroy the conservatory, but everyone also had an excuse for not being there when it happened. Did you know Patricia Drummond? Isabel's expression shifted. Just for a moment, something like regret flickered across her face. I knew her. She used to talk to us when we protested. Not hostile, just curious. She'd ask what we believed, why we believed it. She actually listened. Her voice softened. She told me once that she understood our position, even if she couldn't agree with it, said the animals deserved advocates, even if we went about it wrong. Did you stay in touch? We emailed a few times. She sent me some of her observations, things she'd noticed about animal behavior, signs of stress, enrichment failures. She was trying to make the place better from the inside, while I fought it from the outside. Isabel looked down at her hands. I think she was starting to question whether captivity could ever really be justified, no matter how good the conditions. Do you still have those emails? Some of them. I can forward them to you. Do that. Thank you. I turned to Leonard Price. Mr. Price, you own the adjacent property. You've tried to buy this land multiple times. Price smiled his shark smile. Guilty as charged. I'm a developer, Mr. Goodwin. I see opportunity where others see obstacles. This land is worth $20 million minimum, probably closer to 30 if developed properly. Luxury homes, maybe a golf course, a club. It's prime real estate being wasted on cages and endangered species that most people will never see. And Bertram won't sell. Bertram is stubborn, sentimental, and standing in the way of progress. But that doesn't make me a killer. Price leaned back, perfectly relaxed. I was in Dubai on October 8th, closing a deal on a hotel development. I didn't return to New York until October 12th. International flight records, passport stamps, hotel security footage, all available for your inspection. You seem very prepared with your alibis. I'm a businessman. I prepare for everything. His smile widened, including the eventual sale of this property. Bertram will sell eventually, either to me or to whoever inherits after he's gone. It's inevitable. You sound confident. I'm patient, and I always win in the end. I looked at Roger Ashford, who'd been silent through the entire exchange, still checking his phone. Mr. Ashford, you inherit if your uncle dies. Roger looked up, startled. What? No. I mean, yes, technically, but I don't want him to die. He's my uncle. But you don't work here. You don't share his passion for conservation. I'm a trader, not a zoologist. I don't know anything about animals. Roger's voice took on a defensive whine. Uncle Bertram knows I'll probably sell if I inherit. We've talked about it. He's not happy, but he understands. I have my own life. Where were you on October 8th? At home, in the city. I live in Manhattan, Upper East Side. I wasn't anywhere near here. Anyone who can confirm that? His face reddened. I was alone. I'd broken up with my girlfriend the week before, so I was by myself, but I didn't kill anyone. I didn't even know Patricia Drummond. You never visited the conservatory? Maybe twice in the last 5 years. I'm not interested in this place, Mr. Goodwin. I'm just waiting for Uncle Bertram to retire so I can cash out and move on with my life. There was something almost refreshingly honest about Roger's self-absorption. He was greedy and disconnected, but he didn't seem competent enough to plan and execute a sophisticated murder. I closed my notepad. Thank you all for your time. I'll need full schedules from each of you for the week before and after Patricia's death, and I'll need access to all security footage, entry logs and veterinary records. You'll have everything, Bertram said. The meeting broke up. People filed out, most of them looking relieved to escape. I watched them go, noting body language, reactions, the small tells that people can't quite control. Claudia Marsh left first, walking with the brisk efficiency of someone who had work waiting. Dr. Grove followed, already pulling out his phone to check messages. Isabel Reyes paused at the door, looking back at Bertram with something like pity before disappearing. Leonard Price took his time, stopping to examine a map of the property on the wall, mentally calculating its value. Roger shuffled out last, never looking up from his phone. When they were gone, I turned to Bertram. "You're holding something back." He looked startled. "What do you mean?" "You hired us because you think someone killed Patricia and plans to kill again. But you haven't told me everything. What aren't you saying?" Bertram's face went pale. He crossed to the door, checked that no one was nearby, then closed it softly. "There's something else," he said quietly. "Something I didn't mention yesterday because I wasn't sure it was relevant. But after that second letter, tell me." Patricia came to see me 4 days before she died. She was agitated, frightened. She said she'd discovered something wrong, something about the facility, about how we were operating. She wouldn't tell me what it was, said she needed proof first. She promised she'd bring me everything within the week. His hands were shaking. 3 days later, she was dead. "And you didn't tell the police?" "I didn't think. I wasn't sure it was connected." Deputy Kowalski asked if Patricia had any concerns, any problems. I said no because I didn't know what she'd discovered. I didn't have proof of anything. He met my eyes. I was wrong. Whatever she found got her killed, and now someone's threatening to finish what they started. "Do you have any idea what she discovered?" "None. But it must have been serious. Serious enough that she needed proof before bringing it to me." Patricia was careful, methodical. She wouldn't make accusations without evidence. Evidence she was gathering in her notebook. "Yes, that damned notebook. If we could find it." "We will." I opened the door. "Now show me Patricia's workspace. Her locker, her office, anywhere she might have left something behind." Patricia Drummond's locker was in the keeper's facility, a long building near the main habitats that smelled like animal feed, disinfectant, and hard work. The lockers lined one wall, standard metal units, each marked with a name. Bertram opened Patricia's locker with a master key. Inside was exactly what you'd expect. Spare work clothes, a pair of boots, rain gear, a framed photo of a woman I assumed was her mother, and a coffee mug with a tiger on it. No notebook. "The police searched this already," Bertram said. "After she died, they found nothing unusual. I examined every inch of that locker anyway, checked for false bottoms, hidden compartments, anything that might conceal a notebook. Nothing. If Patricia had hidden something here, someone had already found it." "What about her workstation? Did she have a desk? An office?" "A shared workspace in the education building. She used it for reports and documentation. I'll show you." We walked across the facility, past habitats where I caught glimpses of animals I'd only seen in documentaries. A snow leopard sunning itself on rocks, a pair of wolves pacing their enclosure, something that might have been a clouded leopard sleeping in a tree. The place really was impressive, despite my reservations about keeping wild things in cages. The education building was quieter, cooler. Patricia's workspace was a corner desk in a shared office, her name still on a small placard. The desk had been cleaned out. No papers, no notebooks, no personal items except a small succulent plant that someone was still watering. Who cleared her desk? Claudia did, after we were certain Patricia wasn't coming back. She boxed everything up and sent it to Patricia's mother. "Did you see what was in the box?" "Reports, mostly. Research papers she was working on. Some photos, nothing that seemed important." Bertram's voice was heavy with regret. "I should have looked more carefully. If there was something—" "Don't," I cut him off. "You couldn't have known. Show me the computer. Did she have one assigned to her?" "Yes, but it's password protected. It couldn't get into it. Patricia used heavy encryption. They said they'd need a court order to crack it, and the police never requested one." I sat down at the desk, looked at the dormant computer screen. What did Patricia use this computer for? "Daily reports, mostly. Feeding logs, behavioral observations, medical notes. Everything gets entered into our central database. But she also kept personal research files, things she was working on independently." "Research into what?" "Animal behavior patterns, stress indicators, enrichment effectiveness. She was always looking for ways to improve welfare." Bertram hesitated, "And she was documenting cases where she thought we were failing." "Failing, how?" "Animals showing signs of chronic stress, habitats that weren't meeting needs. protocols that weren't being followed. He looked uncomfortable. Patricia was a perfectionist. She held everyone, including me, to very high standards. If she saw something wrong, she documented it. And if someone was doing something seriously wrong, something illegal or dangerous, she'd document that too. Yes, absolutely. I stood up, thinking. Patricia discovered something 4 days before she died. Something serious enough that she needed proof. Something she was documenting, probably in her notebook, and on this computer. Then she died, and both the notebook and computer access disappeared. I need that computer unlocked. Can you get it to work on it without a court order? They said they couldn't. Then find someone who can. Hire a private specialist if you need to. Tell them it's urgent. I headed for the door, and I need the name and address of Patricia's mother. I want to see what was in that box Claudia sent. I'll get you everything. Outside, Caesar and Loyal were waiting, still flanked by the young keeper who'd been watching them. Both dogs stood as I approached, alert and focused. They've been perfect, the keeper said, clearly awed. Caesar hasn't moved in an hour, and Loyal, he keeps watching that building over there, the one with the bears. I followed Loyal's gaze. The bear habitat was about 200 yards away, a massive concrete structure with multiple dens and a large outdoor area. Even from here, I could see movement inside, something large and dark pacing near the fence line. That's where someone tried to release the bears. Bertram nodded. 3 days ago, someone tampered with the lock system and the feeding mechanism. If our night watchman hadn't discovered it. Show me. We walked to the bear habitat. Up close, it was even more imposing. High walls, reinforced doors, emergency gates. The kind of structure designed to contain animals that could rip a human apart without trying. The main service entrance had a similar setup to the tiger habitat. Keycard reader, numeric pad, multiple fail-safes. But there were scratches around the lock, fresh ones, barely visible unless you looked closely. Those weren't there before, Bertram said, noticing them. Or maybe they were. I don't know. The police said there was no tampering. But I examined the scratches with a pocket magnifier. They were consistent with someone using a tool, probably a pick or thin pry bar, to manipulate the lock mechanism. Someone who knew what they were doing but wasn't quite skilled enough to avoid leaving marks. This was tampered with, I said. Someone tried to force the electronic lock, couldn't get through, and had to find another way. But the police said. The police were wrong or lying. This was absolutely tampered with. I stood up, brushing dirt off my knees. Who did they send to investigate? An officer named Dennison, I think. Young guy, looked bored, spent about 15 minutes examining the lock and said everything was fine. Did you keep his card? I think so. Back in my office. Good. I want his name, badge number, and who he reports to. I looked at the bear habitat again. How many bears do you have? 4, 2 grizzlies, and 2 black bears, all rescues. They came from facilities that closed, or situations where they couldn't survive in the wild. And if someone released them, they'd be confused at first, maybe aggressive, definitely dangerous if someone got between them and food or escape. Bertram's voice was grim. And if it happened at night with staff around, people would die, Mr. Goodwin. No question. Loyal moved closer to the fence, sniffing. One of the bears, a massive grizzly, emerged from the den area and approached the fence line, watching the pit bull with what looked like curiosity. They were separated by 20 feet and multiple layers of security, but there was something unsettling about seeing them acknowledge each other. Caesar let out a low warning sound. The bear huffed, turned, and lumbered back into the den. Your dogs sensed something, Bertram said quietly. They usually do. I called both dogs to heel. I've seen enough. Let's go back to your office. I need those files, that computer expert, and Patricia's mother's contact information, and I need it today. We spent the next 3 hours in Bertram's office while he coordinated with IT, pulled files, and made phone calls. I reviewed security logs, entry records, veterinary schedules, anything that might show a pattern. What I found was exactly what you'd expect at a well-run facility. Routine, discipline, procedure. Nothing obviously wrong, nothing that screamed murder conspiracy. But there were small things, anomalies. 3 days before Patricia died, Someone had accessed the sedative storage room at 1:47 a.m. The log showed Dr. Grove's keycard, but when I checked his schedule, he'd been off-site that night, delivering a lecture at Cornell. Either he'd loaned his card to someone, or someone had copied it. On the night Patricia died, the security camera at the tiger habitat malfunctioned at 2:30 a.m. But at 2:15 a.m., someone had entered the security office, the room where all camera feeds were monitored and recorded. The entry log showed system maintenance, which Bertram said was an automatic entry that appeared when technicians needed access. But there was no scheduled maintenance that night. And here was the interesting part. The person who cleared Patricia's desk, Claudia Marsh, had done it 2 days after the death, before the police had finished their investigation. When I asked Bertram about it, he said Claudia had claimed she was protecting Patricia's privacy and ensuring nothing sensitive was left where unauthorized people might see it, or she was removing evidence. By 5 o'clock I had 3 file boxes full of documents, a promise that a computer specialist would arrive tomorrow to crack Patricia's encryption, and an address in Queens where Patricia's mother lived. "I'm going to the city," I told Bertram. "I'll talk to Mrs. Drummond tonight, see what was in that box. Tomorrow I'll be back to supervise the computer unlock and interview Dr. Caspar, whether she wants to be interviewed or not." "Be careful with Helena," Bertram warned. "She's brilliant, but she's bitter, and she knows how to hold a grudge." "I'll keep that in mind." I loaded Caesar and Loyal into the car, set the file boxes in the trunk, and pointed the Heron toward New York. The drive back was quiet, both dogs drowsy in the fading afternoon light. I spent the time thinking about sedatives, security cameras, and notebooks that contained something worth killing for. By the time I reached Manhattan, I had more questions than answers, but that was progress. Questions meant leads, and leads meant we were getting closer to whoever had killed Patricia Drummond, and was planning something worse. I just hoped we'd find them before the beasts became judges and people started dying. Patricia Drummond's mother lived in a modest row house in Astoria, Queens, the kind of neighborhood where people knew their neighbors and left their doors unlocked during the day. The house was small but immaculate, with flowers in window boxes and a tiny front garden that someone tended with care. I'd called ahead. Margaret Drummond answered the door before I'd finished climbing the steps, a small woman in her 70s, with Patricia's eyes and the kind of dignified grief that settles into bones and stays there. "Mr. Goodwin, come in, please." I'd left the dogs in the car. This wasn't a situation where I needed intimidation or protection, just a mother's trust and a few honest answers. The living room was a shrine to a life cut short. Photos of Patricia everywhere, as a child, as a teenager, as a young woman holding various animals with the confidence of someone who understood them. Graduation photos, candid shots, one beautiful portrait of Patricia sitting beside a tiger, both of them looking at the camera with identical calm intelligence. "That was Raja," Margaret said softly, noticing where I was looking. "Patricia loved that tiger. She used to say he understood her better than most people did." "She sounds remarkable." She was. Margaret gestured to a chair. "Please sit. Can I get you coffee? Tea?" "Coffee, if it's not trouble." She disappeared into the kitchen. I sat, taking in the room. More photos, books about animals, conservation, wildlife biology, a shelf full of Patricia's publications, scientific papers, articles in conservation journals, and there, on a side table, a small wooden box with brass hinges. Margaret returned with coffee. Good coffee, strong and black. She sat across from me, holding her own cup like it was the only thing keeping her anchored. "Thank you for seeing me," I said. "I know this must be difficult." "Everything is difficult now, Mr. Goodwin. Patricia was my only child. Her father died when she was 12. It was just the two of us for a long time." Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. "She was supposed to bury me, not the other way around. I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry to intrude on your grief, but I need to ask you about Patricia, about her work, and about her death. Mr. Ashford called me. He said you're investigating, that you think someone killed my daughter. She met my eyes. Do you? Truly?" "I do. The evidence suggests her death wasn't an accident, and I think she knew something that got her killed." Margaret closed her eyes, and one tear escaped down her cheek. She brushed it away impatiently. "I knew it. I told that Deputy Kowalski. I told him Patricia would never have violated protocol. She was too careful, too professional. but he said the evidence was clear, that there was nothing he could do without proof. She opened her eyes, and they were hard now. Find proof, Mr. Goodwin. Find who killed my daughter and make them pay. I intend to, but I need your help. Patricia kept a notebook, a leather journal where she recorded observations. After she died, the conservatory said they couldn't find it. Do you have it? No. I asked for it specifically. It was important to her. She carried it everywhere, but they said it must have been lost, or she'd left it at home. Margaret shook her head. She never left it at home, ever. It was like a part of her. What about the box Miss Marsh sent? The one with Patricia's things from her desk? I have it. I've been through it a dozen times, hoping to find something. Anything that would explain what happened. She stood, crossed to a closet, and pulled out a cardboard box. Everything's still here. I couldn't bear to put it away. I opened the box carefully. Inside were the detritus of a professional life. Reports, research papers, printouts of data analysis, photographs of animals. A folder marked habitat improvement proposals. Another marked stress indicators, longitudinal study. A third marked enrichment failures, documentation. I flipped through the enrichment folder. It was full of notes, photos, observations about animals, showing signs of stress or boredom. Patricia had been meticulous, documenting every failure, every animal that seemed unhappy or unhealthy. Some pages had red marks, priority issues, things that needed immediate attention. Did anyone else look through this? I asked. Deputy Kowalski did. He said it was all routine work, nothing that suggested a motive for murder. Margaret's voice turned bitter. He thought I was just a grieving mother, seeing conspiracies. He was polite about it, but he didn't believe me. Kowalski's a good cop, but he was overruled. I pulled out another folder, this one unmarked, buried at the bottom of the box. Inside were pages that didn't match the others. These were photocopies, not originals, and they were heavily redacted, with entire sections blacked out. Did you see these? Margaret leaned over. No. What are they? I examined the pages more closely. They appeared to be financial records, budget reports, expense logs, payment authorizations. But someone had gone through and obscured key information, vendor names, payment amounts, authorization signatures. These are conservatory financial records, I said slowly. But someone didn't want certain information visible. Do you know who gave these to Patricia? I have no idea. I didn't even know they were in the box. I flipped through the rest of the folder. More redacted documents. And then at the very back, a single page that hadn't been redacted, probably an oversight. It was a payment authorization form, dated 3 months before Patricia's death. The form authorized a payment of $75,000 to Grove Veterinary Consulting Services for specialized treatment protocols and pharmaceutical consultation. I stared at that number. $75,000 for consulting services. That was an enormous sum for a conservation facility operating on donations and grants. Did Patricia ever mention financial irregularities at the conservatory? Margaret thought for a moment. Not directly, but about a month before she died, she called me. She sounded upset, not frightened, but angry. She said she'd discovered something that made her question whether the conservatory was really operating in the animals' best interests. She said some people cared more about money than conservation. Margaret's voice dropped. I asked her what she meant. She said she couldn't talk about it yet, that she needed proof. She promised she'd tell me everything when she had documentation. Documentation, proof. The same words Bertram had used. Did she mention anyone specific? No, but she said she'd trusted someone who betrayed that trust. She felt foolish for not seeing it earlier. Margaret looked at the papers in my hands. Is that proof? Those documents? Maybe. Or maybe they're a piece of it. I carefully returned everything to the box except the financial documents. May I borrow these? I'll return them, but I need to show them to my employer. Take whatever you need. Just find who killed my daughter. I will. I stood, holding the folder. One more question. Did Patricia have any close friends at the conservatory? Anyone she confided in? She was friendly with everyone, but close to very few. She mentioned Dr. Grove occasionally, said he was brilliant but sad, like he was carrying some burden he couldn't share, and she used to talk about Dr. Caspar before Dr. Caspar left. Patricia admired her tremendously. said she'd taught her everything about animal behavior research. Margaret's expression darkened, but after Dr. Caspar was forced out, Patricia stopped mentioning her. I asked why, and Patricia said sometimes your heroes disappoint you. Did she say how Dr. Caspar disappointed her? No, just that she'd discovered something that changed how she saw her mentor. Margaret walked me to the door. Mr. Goodwin, my daughter believed in truth. She believed that if you saw something wrong, you had an obligation to speak up, regardless of the cost. That's what got her killed, isn't it? Telling the truth. I think so, but the truth will also catch her killer. That's a promise. I left with the folder under my arm, my mind racing. Financial irregularities. A $75,000 payment to Dr. Grove. A falling out between Patricia and her mentor. Redacted documents hidden at the bottom of a box of routine paperwork. Patricia had been investigating something. She'd found proof of something serious enough to get her killed. And whoever killed her had made sure that proof disappeared, along with her notebook. But they'd made a mistake. They'd overlooked these documents, probably because Claudia Marsh had packed the box in a hurry, grabbing everything from Patricia's desk without examining it closely. Now I had evidence. Not enough to prove murder, but enough to start asking dangerous questions. I got in the car, where Caesar and Loyal waited patiently. Both dogs sensed my tension. Caesar's ears were forward, alert. Loyal was watching me with those intelligent brown eyes, waiting for direction. We're going home, boys. Mr. Wolfe needs to see this. I drove back to Manhattan through evening traffic. The folder on the passenger seat, like a loaded gun. Somewhere in those redacted documents was the key to Patricia Drummond's murder. And somewhere in the shadows, someone was planning their next move, planning to release 300 wild animals and let chaos be their cover. We had to move fast, because as Wolfe had said, whoever wrote those letters was working towards something imminent. And I had a feeling we were running out of time. I arrived back at the brownstone at 8:23 p.m., which meant I'd missed dinner. This was a cardinal sin in Wolfe's eyes, not because he cared whether I ate, but because my absence from the dining table disrupted the sacred ritual of Fritz's cooking and Wolfe's appreciation thereof. Caesar and Mars greeted each other like soldiers after a long deployment, a brief nose touch, a thorough mutual sniff, and then Caesar resumed his post in the hall. Loyal found his favorite spot under my desk and collapsed with a sigh that suggested he'd earned his rest. Wolfe was in the office, reading, a bottle of beer at his elbow. He looked up when I entered, closed his book without marking the page, and said, "You missed Fritz's cassoulet. It was transcendent." I was in Queens, talking to a dead woman's mother. "I'm sure you'll forgive me." Doubtful. But continue. I gave him the full report, the interviews with the suspects, the staged crime scene at the tiger habitat, the tampered lock at the bear enclosure, the computer we couldn't access, and finally the documents from Patricia's mother, especially the $75,000 payment to Dr. Grove. Wolfe listened without interrupting, his eyes half closed in that way that meant he was cataloguing every detail, sorting through information like a master jeweler examining stones. When I finished, he opened his eyes and reached for the folder I'd brought. He examined each page with meticulous care, his lips pursed. "These are deliberately obscured," he said finally. "Someone went through these documents with precision, removing specific information while leaving just enough to maintain the appearance of legitimate records. That suggests someone with access to the originals, someone who could make copies and alter them without raising suspicion. Someone inside the conservatory, obviously, and someone who understood that Patricia was collecting evidence." He set the pages down. "The payment to Dr. Grove is significant. $75,000 for pharmaceutical consultation is absurdly high. Either the conservatory was being defrauded, or that payment was covering something else entirely. A bribe? Possibly. Or payment for services rendered that couldn't be recorded accurately." Wolfe leaned back. "Dr. Grove has the knowledge to sedate animals properly. He has access to drugs and equipment. He benefits from policy changes that Mr. Ashford opposes, and now we discover he received an enormous payment shortly before Patricia's death. He reached for his beer, but he also has an alibi. He was off-site the night she died. An alibi that depends on his word. He says he was at his farm. No witnesses." "Precisely, which means nothing." Wolfe drank, set the glass down with precision. "No, there's something else at work here. This isn't about one person with one motive. This is coordinated, sophisticated, patient. You think there's more than one killer? I think there's one architect and multiple tools. His eyes were sharp now. Consider the pattern. Patricia discovers financial irregularities. She begins documenting them. Someone realizes she's a threat and plans her elimination. But they don't do it themselves. They arrange circumstances that make her death appear accidental. They sedate tigers, manipulate security systems, stage a scene so precise that even forensic examination can't prove murder. That takes expertise. It takes obsessive knowledge of the facility, its animals, its procedures, its vulnerabilities. It takes someone who can think like Patricia, who understands what she would investigate, what evidence she would gather, where she would hide it. Wolfe's fingers drummed slowly on his desk. And then after her death, someone cleans her workspace, removes her notebook, obscures financial documents, but they make a mistake. They miss these pages, probably because someone else packed the box in a hurry. Claudia Marsh packed it. Yes. Which means either Miss Marsh is complicit and made an error, or she's innocent and was used to remove evidence without knowing what she was removing. Wolfe was silent for a long moment. Tell me about Dr. Caspar. You haven't met her yet. Ashford's ex-fiancée, forced out for falsifying research data. Patricia's former mentor. By all accounts, brilliant and bitter. And she declined to attend your meeting today. Said she has no connection to the conservatory anymore. A lie. Passion doesn't die simply because employment ends. If she built that facility with Mr. Ashford, if she dedicated 15 years to it, she wouldn't simply walk away. Wolfe's eyes were distant now. She'd want revenge, or vindication, or both. You think she killed Patricia? I think Dr. Caspar is the architect, the mind behind the murder, but I don't think she executed it herself. She's too intelligent to be present when violence occurs. She would plan, instruct, arrange, and she would use someone else's hands to do the bloody work. He looked at me. Tomorrow, you will visit Dr. Caspar. You will observe her, question her, and determine if my hypothesis has merit. And you will find Patricia's notebook. I'm convinced Dr. Caspar has it, or knows where it is. She won't talk to me. Then make her angry. Angry people reveal themselves. Wolfe reached for his book again. One more thing. The letters Mr. Ashford received. The beasts you cage will be your judges, and the cage is broken, the beast is free. They're not threats, they're announcements. Whoever wrote them is telling us their plan, which is to release the animals, all of them. And when chaos descends, when people are running and screaming and dying, the person responsible will have their revenge on Mr. Ashford, on the facility, on everyone who failed to recognize their genius. His voice was cold. This isn't just murder, Archie. It's a massacre in planning, and we have very little time to prevent it. I felt that cold weight settle in my stomach again. How little? The second letter said, judgment comes, present tense, imminent. Wolfe opened his book, signaling the conversation was over. Find Dr. Caspar. Make her reveal herself, and do it quickly, before someone opens all those cages and lets hell loose in Westchester County. I went to my desk, exhausted. The dogs were scattered through the brownstone in their usual positions. Mars at the front door, Apollo on patrol, Minerva upstairs, Diana somewhere invisible, Caesar in the hall, and Loyal under my desk. The pack that kept chaos at bay, just by existing in their alert, protective silence. Tomorrow I'd confront a brilliant woman who might be a murderer. Tonight I'd sleep and hope that whoever was planning something terrible would wait just a little longer before executing it. Because Wolfe was right about one thing. We were running out of time, and somewhere in the darkness, someone was preparing to turn beasts into judges and cages into graves. Dr. Helena Caspar lived in a converted warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn, the kind of space that screamed, I'm an intellectual who's too sophisticated for conventional housing. Industrial windows, exposed brick, probably an obscene monthly rent that she paid without blinking. I'd called ahead. She'd hung up on me. I'd called again. She'd told me to go to hell, so I drove there anyway, with Caesar riding shotgun and a file folder full of questions that needed answers. The building's intercom system was one of those modern nightmares where you had to know the exact apartment number or you couldn't get in. I pressed every button until someone buzzed me through without asking who I was. New Yorkers, eternally trusting or eternally lazy, depending on your perspective. Dr. Caspar's loft was on the 4th floor. I left Caesar in the stairwell. He'd be my insurance policy if things went sideways, and knocked. The woman who opened the door was not what I'd expected. Helena Caspar was in her mid-50s, tall and angular, with steel-grey hair cut severely short and eyes that could dissect you at 20 paces. She wore black jeans, a black sweater, and an expression of pure contempt. "Mr. Goodwin, I told you I wasn't interested in speaking with you." "I heard you. I came anyway. We can talk here, or I can keep showing up until you agree to talk somewhere less private. Your choice." Her jaw tightened. For a moment I thought she'd slam the door in my face. Then she stepped aside. "5 minutes. Then you leave." The loft was exactly what you'd expect from a brilliant scientist with a grudge. Immaculate, minimalist, and dominated by a workspace that looked more like a laboratory than an apartment. One wall was covered in bookshelves, scientific journals, research texts, volumes on animal behavior that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Another wall held framed photographs. Helena with various animals, Helena receiving awards, Helena standing beside a younger Bertram Ashford, both of them smiling. She caught me looking at that last photo. That was before I learned what kind of man he really is, before he chose rules over loyalty, and destroyed 15 years of work. Her voice was acid. "What do you want, Mr. Goodwin?" "I want to know why you killed Patricia Drummond." I said it flatly, watching for reaction. Most people, when accused of murder, do one of 3 things: deny immediately, demand evidence, or attack. Helena Caspar did something more interesting. She laughed. "Is that what Bertram thinks? That I'm so bitter about being fired, that I'd murder a young woman I mentored?" She crossed to a desk, poured herself whiskey from a crystal decanter. "He always did underestimate me. I taught Patricia everything she knew about behavioral observation. Everything. And you think I'd kill her? You tell me. You falsified research data, got caught, got fired. Your fiancé chose principle over loyalty, in your own words. Patricia was close to you once, then she stopped talking to you. What happened, Dr. Caspar? What did Patricia discover about you that made her disappointed?" Helena's eyes went cold. Patricia discovered that I wasn't the perfect mentor she thought I was. She found out I'd adjusted some data to secure grant funding. Not falsified, Mr. Goodwin, adjusted. Minor statistical corrections that didn't change the fundamental findings, but made them more attractive to funding committees. She drank. Patricia was naive. She thought science was pure, that truth was black and white. She didn't understand that sometimes you have to compromise to keep the work alive. So she confronted you. She asked questions. I explained my reasoning. She didn't agree. Helena's voice turned bitter. She said I'd betrayed the animals, that I was no better than the people who exploit them for profit. She was so self-righteous, so certain of her own moral superiority. It was exhausting. And that made you angry. It made me disappointed. I'd invested years in training her, teaching her, showing her how to really see animals instead of just looking at them. And she threw it in my face because I made pragmatic decisions she found uncomfortable. Helena set down her glass, but angry enough to kill her. "No, anger is a waste of energy, Mr. Goodwin. I have better things to do with my time." "Like what? Plan revenge on Bertram Ashford? Like build a new career, consult for organizations that actually appreciate expertise, live my life without being judged by sanctimonious fools." She checked her watch. "Your 5 minutes are up." "I'm not finished. I have evidence that someone at the conservatory is embezzling money. $75,000 paid to Dr. Grove for pharmaceutical consultation. Did you know about that?" For the first time, something flickered across Helena's face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Nathan Grove received $75,000. According to financial records, Patricia was investigating. Records that someone tried to obscure but didn't quite succeed in hiding. I watched her carefully. "You know something about that payment?" "I know Nathan Grove is brilliant, but troubled. I know he opposed many of Bertram's policies. I know he wanted changes that Bertram refused to make." Helena's voice was careful now. "If Nathan was being paid for consulting, it wouldn't surprise me. He's one of the leading experts on captive animal veterinary medicine. $75,000 for consultation? If someone valued his expertise, yes." She met my eyes. "Or if someone was paying him for something else entirely." "Like what?" That's your job to discover, isn't it? I'm not an investigator. She walked to the door, opened it. Now get out. We're done. I didn't move. Where's Patricia's notebook? How would I know? Because you were her mentor. Because you taught her to document everything. Because if she discovered something serious enough to get her killed, she'd have written it in that notebook, and whoever killed her would have taken it. I stepped closer. You have it, Dr. Caspar. Or you know who does. I don't have Patricia's notebook. Her voice was flat. I haven't seen it, touched it, or read it. And before you ask, no, I wasn't anywhere near the conservatory when she died. I was in Boston, presenting a paper at MIT. 300 witnesses, video recording of my presentation, credit card receipts from restaurants. I'm sure you'll check. I will. Good. Now leave before I call the police and report you for harassment. I left. Caesar was waiting in the stairwell, alert and watchful. We walked back to the car in silence. Helena Caspar was hiding something. I was certain of it. But I was equally certain she hadn't killed Patricia Drummond, or at least hadn't been physically present when it happened. Her alibis were too solid, too detailed. She'd been preparing for this confrontation, ready with dates and receipts and witnesses. But that didn't mean she wasn't involved. Wolfe was right. This felt like an architect's work. Someone planned it, arranged it, set everything in motion, and someone else executed it. The question was, who were Helena Caspar's tools? Back in the car, I called Wolfe's number. He answered on the third ring. Yes? Dr. Caspar has alibis for Patricia's death, but she knows something about that $75,000 payment. She was surprised when I mentioned it, then tried to cover it. And she's not surprised that Patricia is dead. She's bitter about it, but not shocked. Interesting. Return to the conservatory. The computer specialist arrives at noon. You'll supervise the extraction of files. Wolfe paused. And Archie, be careful. Whoever killed Patricia knows you're investigating. They'll be watching. I'm always careful. You're always reckless. There's a difference. He hung up. I drove north again, through late morning traffic, thinking about brilliant women and hidden notebooks and $75,000 payments that couldn't be explained. Somewhere in all this was a pattern, a design, a mind that had planned murder and was planning something worse. I just had to find it before the cages opened and judgment fell. The computer specialist was a woman in her 30s named Angela Cho, with purple hair, multiple piercings, and the kind of quiet confidence that comes from being the smartest person in any room involving technology. She arrived at the conservatory at 11:47 a.m. in a van that looked like a mobile electronics lab. Bertram met us at Patricia's old workspace with nervous energy that suggested he hadn't slept. Mr. Goodwin, Miss Cho, thank you for coming. Let's see what we have. Angela pulled out a laptop bag and began setting up. You said heavy encryption? It couldn't crack it. They said they'd need a court order and FBI resources. People always say that. Keeps them from having to work weekends. Angela connected cables to Patricia's computer, booted her laptop, and began typing with the speed of a concert pianist. This might take a while. I'll need absolute quiet, no interruptions, and good coffee if you have it. Fritz packed a thermos, I said, producing it. Best coffee you'll ever drink. She took a sip, closed her eyes in appreciation. Okay, you can stay. For the next 3 hours, Angela worked in complete silence, occasionally muttering to herself or typing strings of code that looked like alien languages. Bertram and I waited in the hallway, watching through the office window. What if there's nothing on that computer? Bertram asked quietly. What if Patricia kept everything in her notebook and we'll never find it? Then we work with what we have. But I don't think Patricia was careless. If she was investigating financial irregularities, she'd keep backups. Digital evidence is harder to destroy than paper. Unless someone deleted it. Deleted files can be recovered. That's why we hired the best. At 3:15 p.m., Angela opened the office door. I'm in. We crowded around the computer. The screen showed Patricia's desktop, a photo of a tiger as background, folders organized with meticulous care, documents with names like Enrichment Studies Q3 and Behavioral Observations Big Cats. But Angela had pulled up something else, a hidden folder, encrypted with an encryption, buried so deep that even someone who cracked the first layer wouldn't find it. The folder was titled Evidence. Inside were dozens of files, spreadsheets, scanned documents, photographs, and video files. Angela opened the first spreadsheet. It was a financial analysis created by Patricia, comparing the conservatory's official budget reports to actual vendor receipts, bank statements, and payment authorizations she'd somehow obtained. The discrepancies were staggering. Over the past 3 years, someone had been systematically siphoning money from the conservatory, false vendor payments, inflated pharmaceutical costs, non-existent consulting fees. The total came to over $400,000. And the payments all led back to one account, Grove Veterinary Consulting Services. Nathan Grove, Bertram whispered. He's been stealing from us. Or someone's been using his name. I clicked through more files. There were emails, Patricia corresponding with vendors, asking questions about invoices, receiving confused responses. One pharmaceutical supplier wrote, "We have no record of a $40,000 shipment to Ashford Conservatory in March. Perhaps you're thinking of a different company." Another file contained photographs, shots of the pharmaceutical storage room, showing shelves that should have been full but were half empty. Patricia had documented everything: missing drugs, falsified inventories, shipments that arrived but were never properly logged. She was building a case, I said. She had proof of systematic fraud. But it was the video file that sealed it. Angela opened it. The timestamp read October 5th, 4 days before Patricia died. The video showed the pharmaceutical storage room, shot from a hidden angle, probably Patricia's phone, propped somewhere out of sight. The time code showed 11:47 p.m. The door opened. 2 figures entered. One was Dr. Nathan Grove, unmistakable in his wire-rimmed glasses and rumpled clothes. The other was Claudia Marsh. They moved quickly, efficiently, removing vials and boxes from shelves and placing them in a duffel bag. Grove checked a list, calling out drug names. Claudia located them, packed them. They worked like a team that had done this many times before. "Those drugs are worth thousands," Bertram said, his voice hollow. "They're stealing our pharmaceutical supplies and selling them. Or using them," I said. "Grove has the expertise to sedate animals. He's been stealing the drugs he needs, covering his tracks with false invoicing, and splitting the profit with Claudia." The video continued. Grove said something inaudible. Claudia laughed, replied. Then Grove's expression changed. He'd noticed something. He crossed to where the camera was hidden, reached out. The video ended. "Patricia was there," Bertram said. "She was recording them, and they discovered her. Or discovered the camera afterward. I checked the file properties. This was uploaded to her cloud storage at 11:52 p.m. that night. She got the camera out before they found it, uploaded the evidence, and then they knew she had proof," Bertram finished. "So they killed her." Angela had pulled up another file, a document dated October 8th, written by Patricia. It was titled Report of Financial Fraud and Ethical Violations at Ashford Conservatory, Draft. The document laid out everything: the false invoicing, the stolen drugs, the conspiracy between Grove and Marsh. It detailed how they'd been operating for at least 3 years, stealing both money and pharmaceuticals, using Grove's position to create false records and Marsh's authority to cover inconsistencies. And at the bottom, Patricia had written, "I will present this evidence to Mr. Ashford on October 10th, giving Dr. Grove and Miss Marsh the opportunity to resign voluntarily and make restitution. If they refuse, I will forward all documentation to law enforcement and the State Veterinary Board. The animals deserve better. The facility deserves better. And the truth must be told." October 10th, the day after she died. "She gave them a deadline," I said. "She told them she had evidence, gave them a chance to come clean, and instead of confessing, they killed her." Bertram sank into a chair, his face white. "Nathan and Claudia. I trusted them. I trusted them with everything." "Can you copy all of this?" I asked Angela. "Already done. Cloud backup, external drive, and encrypted email to 3 separate addresses. This evidence isn't going anywhere." She looked at me. "What now?" "Now I call Inspector Kramer, and then I call Mr. Wolfe." I turned to Bertram. "Where are Grove and Marsh right now?" "Nathan should be in the veterinary clinic. Claudia's usually doing rounds this time of day." Bertram checked his watch. "They'll both be here until 6 at least." "Good. Keep them here. Make up an excuse. An emergency meeting. A donor visit. Anything. We need them in one place when Kramer arrives. You think they'll run? I think they're planning something. Those letters you received, the beasts you cage will be your judges. That's not Grove and Marsh's style. They're thieves, not philosophers. I pulled out my phone. Someone else wrote those letters. Someone else is planning to release the animals. We need to figure out who before it's too late. Bertram's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his face went even paler. There's an alarm at the bear habitat. Something's wrong. We ran. The bear habitat was chaos when we arrived. 2 security guards stood at the main entrance, radios crackling with overlapping voices. A small crowd of staff had gathered, looking frightened. And there, standing near the service entrance with blood on her hands, was Claudia Marsh. What happened? Bertram demanded. Claudia looked at him with strange calm. Someone disabled the locks. All of them. The bears are still contained, barely, but the system's been compromised. If those doors open, we'll have 4 bears loose on the property with 30 people in the blast radius. I pushed through to the service entrance. The electronic lock had been systematically destroyed, not just disabled, but physically torn apart. Wires exposed, the keypad smashed. This wasn't subtle tampering. This was deliberate, violent sabotage. How long ago? 10 minutes, maybe. I was doing rounds, heard the alarm, came running. Claudia held up her hands. The blood came from a gash across her palm. Cut myself on the wiring trying to figure out what happened. Where's Dr. Grove? I haven't seen him since lunch. I looked at Bertram. Find Grove. Now, and find Isabel Reyes. I want to know where she is. Isabel's not here. She hasn't been on the property in days. Find her anyway, and get your security team to lock down this facility. Nobody leaves until I say so. Bertram pulled out his phone, barking orders. I examined the lock more carefully. The damage was extensive but strange. Whoever did this had the knowledge to disable the system, but had chosen to destroy it instead. Why? Unless destruction was the point. Unless they wanted everyone to know this was deliberate. My phone buzzed. Wolfe. Archie. Kramer is en route. He'll arrive within the hour with backup. Have you contained the situation? Contained? No. Someone just sabotaged the bear habitat. The locks are destroyed, staff is panicking, and I still don't know who's behind this. Yes, you do. Wolfe's voice was maddeningly calm. You've had the answer since you found Patricia's computer files. You simply haven't assembled it correctly. Then help me assemble it. Grove and Marsh killed Patricia Drummond. That's established. They were stealing from the conservatory, and she discovered it. They staged her death to look like an animal attack, using their expertise and access. Wolfe paused, but Grove and Marsh aren't the architects of this larger plan. They're opportunists who saw a chance for profit and took it. Someone else is orchestrating the chaos, someone with a different motive entirely. The letters, someone who wants revenge on Ashford. Correct. Someone who believes Mr. Ashford wronged them. Someone who knows the facility intimately. Someone with both the intellect to plan and the passion to execute. Another pause. And someone who has nothing left to lose. I thought about that. Grove and Marsh had everything to lose. Their careers, their freedom, their reputations. They'd killed to protect their theft, but they wouldn't risk releasing dangerous animals and causing mass casualties. That wasn't their style. But someone else would. Someone who'd been publicly humiliated. Someone who'd lost 15 years of work, a partnership, an engagement. Someone who'd sworn revenge. Dr. Caspar, I said. Precisely. Dr. Helena Caspar orchestrated Patricia's murder, using Grove and Marsh as her instruments. She knew about their theft, probably discovered it before Patricia did, and she offered them a solution: kill Patricia, frame it as an accident, and she'd keep their secret. In exchange, they'd help her destroy the conservatory and Mr. Ashford. But Caspar has alibis for the night. Patricia died. Because she wasn't there. She didn't need to be. Grove and Marsh did the killing. Dr. Caspar simply provided the plan, the expertise, the knowledge of how to stage a perfect animal attack. Wolfe's voice hardened. And now she's executing the final phase, releasing the animals, causing chaos, destroying everything Mr. Ashford built. That's her revenge. Where is she? At the conservatory. She has to be. She's the one sabotaging the locks. She knows the facility too well to trust it to anyone else. Wolfe paused again. Archie, Listen to me carefully. Dr. Caspar is brilliant, desperate, and has already killed once by proxy. She won't stop until the conservatory is destroyed and Mr. Ashford is ruined or dead. Find her before she opens those cages." He hung up. I turned to Claudia, who was wrapping her hand with gauze from a first aid kit. Where would Dr. Caspar go if she wanted to sabotage multiple habitats at once? Claudia looked up sharply. "Helena, she's not. Answer the question." "The main control room. It monitors all electronic locks, security systems, feeding mechanisms. If someone wanted to create maximum chaos, they'd need access to that control room." Claudia's eyes widened. "It's in the administration building, basement level, but nobody can get in without..." "Without what?" "Without master access codes. Only Bertram and I have them." She pulled out her key card. "Mine's right here." "And Caspar was your partner for 15 years. She built this facility. You think she doesn't have copies of those codes?" Claudia went pale. "She couldn't. We changed everything after she left." "Did you change the physical locks? The backup systems? The emergency overrides?" Silence. I ran. The administration building was 200 yards away. I covered the distance in under a minute, Caesar matching my pace stride for stride. Behind me, I could hear Bertram shouting orders, security guards mobilizing. The building was quiet. Too quiet. The basement door was open. Not forced. Opened with a key card. The lock disengaged properly. I descended stairs 2 at a time, Caesar beside me, both of us silent. The control room door stood ajar. Light spilled out. And inside, hunched over a computer terminal with the focused intensity of a surgeon, was Dr. Helena Caspar. She didn't look up when I entered. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, line after line of code scrolling across multiple screens. On the wall behind her, a bank of monitors showed every habitat in the facility. Tigers, bears, wolves, leopards, venomous snakes, crocodiles. Each screen had a status indicator showing lock integrity. One by one, those indicators were turning red. "Dr. Caspar." "Mr. Goodwin." She still didn't look up. "You're very persistent. I'll give you that. Most people would have accepted the obvious answer. Patricia violated protocol. Animals killed her. Tragic accident. But you kept digging. You killed her." "I arranged her death. There's a difference." Her voice was clinical, detached. "Nathan and Claudia did the actual work. I simply provided the plan. Patricia made it easy. She announced she had evidence against Nathan and Claudia, gave them a deadline. All I had to do was convince them that killing her was their only option." "Why? Patricia was your student. You trained her." Patricia was naive. She thought truth was more important than survival. She was going to destroy Nathan and Claudia over money, petty, insignificant money. Helena's hands never stopped moving across the keyboard. I offered them an alternative: eliminate the threat, stage it properly, and continue their profitable arrangement. They agreed. People usually do when you offer them a way out. "And in exchange, they help you destroy this place." "No, they help me take what's rightfully mine." Helena finally looked at me, her eyes cold. "I built this conservatory. 15 years of my life, my expertise, my vision. Bertram took it all away because I made pragmatic decisions he found uncomfortable. So I'll take it back. When these animals are released, when the chaos is complete, when Bertram is ruined and bankrupt from lawsuits and closures, someone will have to rebuild, and that someone will be me. You'll kill innocent people. Collateral damage, unfortunate but necessary." She returned to the keyboard. "In 5 minutes, every electronic lock in this facility will open. 300 animals, released simultaneously. By the time anyone contains them, this place will be uninsurable, Bertram will be destroyed, and I'll be positioned to take over with new funding and new protocols." She smiled. "It's elegant, really. Poetic justice. It's murder. It's evolution. The strong survive. The weak perish. Bertram's weakness, his sentimentality, his attachment to rules, has been his fatal flaw." Helena hit a final key. "There. Done. The countdown starts now. 4 minutes 30 seconds. Not enough time to stop it, even if you could access these systems, which you can't." Caesar growled low in his chest. Helena noticed him for the first time. "Ah, one of Bertram's pack. Beautiful animal. Doberman, correct? Excellent breeding. It's a shame he'll probably die in the chaos." She stood, collected a laptop bag from beside the desk. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to be elsewhere when this begins. Alibi, you understand. I'm sure Nathan and Claudia will provide their own excuses. They're resourceful that way. She walked toward the door. I didn't move. You're not leaving. You can't stop me, Mr. Goodwin. And you can't stop the release. Your choice? Try to detain me and waste precious minutes while locks open, or let me go and try to save people. She smiled. What will it be? Revenge or rescue? I looked at the screens. 300 animals. 30 staff members scattered across the facility. 4 minutes and counting. I pulled out my phone and called Bertram. Get everyone into the secure buildings now. All staff, all visitors, everyone. Lock the doors and don't come out until I give the all clear. What's happening? Caspar's releasing the animals. You have 4 minutes. Move. I hung up and looked at Helena. You're staying right here. Fascinating. You choose revenge. She set down her bag, utterly calm. Very well. But while you're detaining me, people are dying. Can you live with that? Can you? I can live with anything, Mr. Goodwin. That's the difference between us. Caesar positioned himself between Helena and the door. I moved to the computer terminal, looking at the screens. The countdown was visible now, 3:40. I'm not a computer expert. I can use email and browse the web, but code might as well be hieroglyphics. But I didn't need to understand code. I just needed to stop it. I pulled the main power cable. The screens went dark. The countdown stopped. Emergency lights kicked on, bathing the room in red. Helena's expression didn't change. Backup power. The system will restart in 30 seconds. You've bought yourself nothing. Wrong. I've bought myself time for you to undo what you've done. And why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows you murdered Patricia Drummond. I have video evidence of Grove and Marsh stealing drugs. I have Patricia's files showing their conspiracy. And I have your connection to both of them. You recruited them, manipulated them, used them to kill a woman you mentored. I moved closer. You're brilliant, Dr. Caspar. You planned this perfectly. But you made one mistake. You assumed nobody would care enough about Patricia to keep investigating. You were wrong. The backup power engaged. Screens flickered back to life. The countdown resumed. 3:12, 3:11, 3:10. Helena watched it with satisfaction. You have no proof I was involved. Nathan and Claudia will deny everything. And without proof, I'm simply a former employee with alibis and witnesses. She smiled. You've lost, Mr. Goodwin. Have I? I pulled out my phone again, set it to record, and placed it on the desk facing her. Then you won't mind repeating what you just told me. About arranging Patricia's death. About manipulating Grove and Marsh. About releasing 300 dangerous animals. Her smile faltered. That's what I thought. You're not as confident as you pretend. I gestured to the keyboard. Stop the countdown. Now, or when Inspector Kramer arrives, and he will arrive, he's already on his way. I'll make sure you're charged with not just murder, but terrorism, reckless endangerment, and every other charge I can think of. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison instead of rebuilding your precious conservatory. 2:42, 2:41. Helena's hands were shaking now. Not with fear, with rage. You don't understand what Bertram took from me. 15 years. Everything I built, everything I accomplished. He destroyed it all over paperwork, over insignificant details. He destroyed it because you lied, because you falsified data, and betrayed the animals you claimed to protect. I kept my voice level. Patricia understood that. She idolized you, and you disappointed her, so she cut you off. And that's what really hurt, isn't it? Not that Bertram fired you, that Patricia, your protégé, your student, judged you and found you wanting. Helena's face went white. Don't presume to understand. I understand perfectly. You killed Patricia because she reminded you of your own failure. And now you're destroying the conservatory because you can't stand that it continues without you. I pointed to the keyboard. Stop. The countdown.
2:08,
27, 26, 26, Bonth, Bonthethesix, Bonthadam, 26, Bonthethese, Bonthadam, 26, 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 Pothadam, 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 26. For a moment, I thought she wouldn't do it. I thought she'd let the whole thing burn just to prove she could. Then her shoulders sagged. She crossed to the keyboard and typed a sequence of commands. The countdown stopped at 1:50. The lock indicators stayed green. The animals remained caged. Helena Caspar stood in the red emergency lighting, looking suddenly old and broken. "I built this place," she whispered. "It was supposed to be my legacy." "It was, and you destroyed it yourself." Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Inspector Kramer burst into the room with 4 officers behind him, guns drawn. "Archie, you all right?" "Fine. Dr. Helena Caspar. Meet Inspector Lionel Kramer." "Inspector, Dr. Caspar just confessed to arranging the murder of Patricia Drummond and attempting to release 300 dangerous animals. I have it recorded." I picked up my phone. "You'll also want to arrest Dr. Nathan Grove and Claudia Marsh for murder and fraud. I can show you where they are." Kramer's expression was grim satisfaction. "Cuff her. Read her rights." One of the officers moved forward. Helena didn't resist as the handcuffs clicked into place. She just looked at me with hollow eyes. "You were supposed to choose rescue over revenge," she said quietly. "I gave you the choice. I wanted to see what kind of man you were. I chose both. That's the difference between us." They led her away. I stood in that control room, surrounded by monitors showing caged beasts that would live another day, and felt the weight of what had almost happened. 300 animals, dozens of people, all of it seconds away from chaos. And somewhere in Manhattan, 1/7 of a ton of genius was probably drinking beer and feeling smug about being right. I called him. "Archie. Status? Caspar's in custody. Confession recorded. Crisis averted." "You were right about everything." "Of course I was. Return to the brownstone. Bring Kramer. We'll need formal statements and closing details." He paused. "And Archie, well done." High praise from Nero Wolfe. I climbed the stairs, emerged into fading daylight, and found Bertram Ashford waiting with his arms wrapped around himself, looking lost. "Is it over?" "It's over. Dr. Caspar won't hurt anyone else. Grove and Marsh are being arrested, and your conservatory is safe." "Patricia," his voice broke. "She was trying to save this place, and we killed her for it." "Grove and Marsh killed her. Caspar arranged it. You didn't know." "I should have known. I should have seen it." Bertram looked at me with devastated eyes. "What do I do now?" "You rebuild, you hire new staff, you implement Patricia's recommendations from her reports, and you name something after her, a habitat, a program, something that honors what she tried to do." I put a hand on his shoulder. "You survive. That's what she'd want." He nodded, unable to speak. But I found Caesar, who'd been guarding the entrance like a professional. Together we walked back to the car where Loyal waited patiently. 2 days, 2 murders solved, 1 conspiracy unraveled, and 300 beasts still caged, waiting for someone to prove they deserved better. Not bad for a week's work. We assembled in Wolfe's office at 8 o'clock that evening. Inspector Kramer with his eternal cigar, Bertram Ashford, looking exhausted, Angela Cho because she'd earned the right to see how her work closed the case, and me at my desk with Loyal at my feet, and the rest of the pack distributed through the brownstone like a security detail. Wolfe sat behind his desk, 2 bottles of beer at his elbow, looking satisfied in that way he gets when all the pieces have fallen into place and he gets to explain how clever he was. "Gentlemen, Miss Cho, thank you for attending." Wolfe poured beer, drank, and surveyed his audience. I thought it appropriate to clarify the complete sequence of events, as there remain some questions about motive and methodology. "Caspar confessed," Kramer said. "We have her on recording. We arrested Grove and Marsh based on video evidence. Case closed. The arrests are justified, but the full pattern deserves explanation. Wolfe leaned back. This was not one crime but several, connected by opportunity and orchestrated by intelligence. Let me begin with the foundation. Approximately 3 years ago, Dr. Nathan Grove and Claudia Marsh began systematically defrauding the conservatory. For money? Bertram asked. For money and drugs. Dr. Grove has access to valuable pharmaceuticals, controlled substances worth thousands of dollars on the grey market. He also had the authority to order supplies and authorize payments. With Miss Marsh's complicity, she controlled inventory and had authority to approve vendor invoices. They created a profitable scheme, inflate pharmaceutical costs, order excessive quantities, skim the surplus, and sell it through Grove's consulting business. Wolfe gestured to the financial documents on his desk. The $75,000 payment was merely the largest single transaction. The total fraud exceeded $400,000. How did Patricia discover it? Angela asked. Through meticulous observation, Miss Drummond was responsible for daily animal care, which included administering medications. She began noticing inconsistencies, inventory that should exist but didn't, animals receiving inappropriate medications, supplies running short despite adequate budget allocation. Wolfe's eyes were cold. She did what any good scientist does. She documented. She cross-referenced budgets with actual vendor receipts. She photographed storage areas. She tracked shipments. And eventually, she recorded Grove and Marsh in the act of theft. That video we found on her computer, I said. Correct. October 5th, 4 days before her death. Miss Drummond confronted them, privately, and offered them a chance to resign and make restitution. She gave them until October 10th to decide. Wolfe drank again, but Grove and Marsh had a different solution. They consulted with Dr. Helena Caspar. Bertram flinched. How did they know Helena? Because Dr. Caspar maintained relationships with conservatory staff after her dismissal. She was intelligent enough to realize that someday she might need allies inside the facility. When Grove and Marsh needed help, she provided it, not out of loyalty to them, but because she saw an opportunity for revenge. Revenge on me, Bertram said quietly. On you, on the conservatory, on the institution that rejected her. Wolfe's voice was measured. Dr. Caspar is a brilliant woman who made pragmatic compromises she believed were justified. When you discovered her falsifications and demanded her resignation, she experienced it as betrayal, not because you were wrong, but because you prioritized principle over partnership. She believed 15 years of shared work should outweigh one ethical violation. You disagreed. I had to. The research had to be trustworthy. I'm not debating the decision. I'm explaining the consequences. Wolfe gestured dismissively. Dr. Caspar left the conservatory bitter and humiliated. She rebuilt her career, but the wound remained. When Grove and Marsh approached her with Patricia Drummond's threat, she recognized an opportunity, helped them eliminate Patricia in a way that appeared accidental, and in exchange they'd assist with her ultimate revenge, destroying the conservatory by releasing its animals. So she planned the murder, Kramer said. She designed it. Dr. Caspar knew Patricia's habits, her protocols, her relationships with the animals. She knew that Patricia would respond to a false emergency, particularly one involving an animal in distress. She instructed Grove to sedate the tigers, create a scenario that would lure Patricia into the habitat, and ensure Patricia's death appeared consistent with a tiger attack. But the tigers were sedated, I said. How could sedated tigers kill her? They didn't. Wolfe's eyes were half closed now. That was the error in Deputy Kowalski's thinking. He correctly identified that sedated tigers couldn't have mauled Patricia to death. But he then searched for alternative explanations. Blunt trauma, poison, prior death. He found none, so he accepted the medical examiner's ruling despite his doubts. Then how did she die? Claudia Marsh killed her. With her hands, with her knowledge of animal attack patterns, with her anatomical expertise. Wolfe opened his eyes. Miss Marsh worked with big cats for years. She knew precisely how they kill, the bite patterns, the claw marks, the sequence of wounds. After Grove sedated the tigers, Miss Marsh entered the habitat, killed Patricia manually, and inflicted wounds that perfectly mimicked a tiger attack. Then they positioned the body, waited for the tigers to partially wake, and allowed natural instinct to complete the scene. The room was silent. Bertram looked sick. When the tigers woke, They discovered a dead human in their territory. I said slowly. They'd investigate, possibly bite or claw the body. Precisely. Not enough to kill, but enough to add fresh animal saliva and tissue damage to the existing wounds. The medical examiner saw what appeared to be a clear tiger attack. Deputy Kowalski saw sedated tigers that couldn't have caused those injuries. Both were partially correct. Wolfe drank. The error was assuming the wounds were all created simultaneously. They weren't. Human hands created the fatal injuries. Tiger instinct obscured the evidence. Jesus, Kramer muttered. Dr. Caspar's brilliance lies in her understanding of behavior, both animal and human. She knew how tigers would respond. She knew how investigators would interpret the scene. She designed a murder that appears impossible, unless you understand that it required two separate actors, human intelligence to kill, and animal instinct to mask the killing. What about the notebook? Angela asked. Patricia's documentation, taken by Miss Marsh when she packed Patricia's desk. Destroyed, presumably, along with any other physical evidence that could threaten them. Wolfe's voice turned cold. But they made a mistake. They didn't realize Patricia had backed up everything digitally. They destroyed the notebook, but the evidence remained, waiting for someone intelligent enough to access it. Angela smiled slightly at that. The second phase of Dr. Caspar's plan was revenge. Wolfe continued. With Patricia eliminated and Grove and Marsh indebted to her, she proceeded to destroy the conservatory itself. The threatening letters, the sabotage attempts, these were designed to create fear and instability. The final act would be releasing the animals simultaneously, causing casualties, lawsuits and closure. And in the aftermath, Dr. Caspar would position herself to rebuild, claiming she'd always known the facility needed better security and oversight. But we stopped her, I said. You stopped the execution, but the design was flawless. Wolfe looked at Kramer. Dr. Caspar's confession is valuable, but she'll attempt to recant. She's too intelligent to accept defeat gracefully. Your case depends on connecting her to Grove and Marsh, proving their conspiracy, and demonstrating she orchestrated both the murder and the sabotage. We have phone records showing calls between them, Kramer said. We have the video of Grove and Marsh stealing drugs. We have Caspar's admission on Goodwin's recording. And we have Patricia's computer files showing what they were stealing and why. Then you have enough. But expect Dr. Caspar's lawyers to argue that her confession was coerced, that she was merely theorizing, that no physical evidence links her to Patricia's death. Wolfe's voice was dry. She'll fight until the end. It's her nature. Let her fight. We've got her. Kramer stood. I need formal statements from everyone. Goodwin, you first. We spent the next 2 hours with paperwork, statements and legal procedures. Kramer was thorough, methodical, making sure every detail was documented. By the time he finished, it was after 10 and I was exhausted. Bertram left looking like a man who'd lost everything he believed in. Angela departed with promises to send her final bill and a request for more of Fritz's coffee. Kramer disappeared into the night with a briefcase full of evidence and the satisfaction of closing a case that had bothered him for weeks. When they were gone, Wolfe and I sat in the office with the dogs scattered around us, and the brownstone quiet again. A successful resolution, Wolfe said finally. 3 people dead or destroyed, animals that almost got released, a facility that'll never fully recover. I shook my head. Doesn't feel successful. Justice rarely does, but it's necessary. Wolfe poured the last of his beer. Mr. Ashford will rebuild. The conservatory will implement better oversight, and Patricia Drummond's evidence will ensure the animals receive better care. That's not nothing, Archie. I suppose not. Loyal stirred at my feet, stretched, and rested his head on my knee. I scratched behind his notched ear, thinking about beasts and cages and the thin line between civilization and chaos. Instinct, Goodwin, is a beast best kept leashed by reason. I looked at Wolfe. What? Something I've been considering. Instinct drives us. Hunger, fear, anger, loyalty, but reason must restrain those drives, or we become no better than the animals we cage. He gestured to Loyal. Your dog understands this. He has the instinct to protect, to fight, to dominate, but he chooses restraint. That's intelligence. You saying humans should be more like dogs. I'm saying humans should be more like themselves. The best version, the reasoned version, the version that understands that civilization is a choice we make every day. Wolfe closed his book, stood. Dr. Caspar chose chaos over reason. Grove and Marsh chose greed over principle. Patricia Drummond chose truth over safety. We choose order over entropy. That's the difference. He headed for the elevator, then paused. Tomorrow you'll visit Mr. Ashford. Ensure his facility implements proper security and financial oversight, and collect our final payment, $50,000, as agreed. You enjoyed this case, didn't you? I enjoyed the puzzle. The solution was inevitable, but the design was elegant. He smiled slightly. Good night, Archie. The elevator rose. I sat alone with the dogs and the memory of a woman who died for telling the truth. Outside, New York hummed with its usual chaos. Inside the brownstone, order reigned. Books in their places, dogs at their posts, beer in the refrigerator, and a genius upstairs who understood that the world was full of beasts, but reason could tame them. Most of the time. 3 days later, on a Saturday morning bright with autumn sun, I sat at my desk while Wolfe read the newspaper and the dogs lounged in various states of repose. The check from Bertram Ashford had cleared, $50,000 plus expenses. Kramer had called twice with updates. Grove and Marsh were cooperating, providing testimony against Caspar in exchange for reduced sentences. Caspar herself had hired a team of expensive lawyers who were already filing motions to suppress evidence. It would be a long trial, but Kramer was confident. The conservatory had reopened under new management. Bertram had hired an independent financial auditor and implemented Patricia's recommendations from her research. He'd also named the tiger habitat the Patricia Drummond Memorial Sanctuary for Endangered Cats. It wasn't much, but it was something. My phone buzzed. A text from Angela Cho. Found something interesting on Patricia's computer. Call me when you have a minute. I called. What did you find? A final video file, dated October 8th, the night before she died. She recorded it alone, in her apartment. It's like a testament, I guess. Wanted you to know about it before I send it to her mother. Send it to me too. 5 minutes later, the video arrived. I played it on my computer, volume low. Patricia Drummond appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like a small apartment, wearing a comfortable sweater and looking tired but determined. Behind her, I could see photos of animals on the walls, tigers, bears, elephants, a life devoted to creatures that couldn't speak for themselves. If you're watching this, Patricia said, it means something happened to me. I'm recording this because I'm about to confront people who've been stealing from the conservatory, people I worked with, trusted. I have evidence. I'm giving them a chance to do the right thing. But if they don't, I wanted someone to know the truth. She pulled out her leather notebook, held it up to the camera. Everything's in here. All my observations, all my documentation, all the proof. I've also backed up everything digitally, but this notebook, this is personal. This is 3 years of work, of caring for animals who depend on us to do right by them. Her voice wavered slightly. I love this work. I love these animals, and I refuse to let anyone exploit them for profit. She set the notebook down. If I don't make it through this, if something happens, I want people to know that the animals at the conservatory deserve better. They deserve staff who put their welfare first. They deserve facilities that respect their dignity. And they deserve a future that isn't decided by greed or ego. Patricia smiled, and it was heartbreaking. I don't regret this. I don't regret speaking up. Truth matters, even when it's dangerous. The video ended. I sat for a long moment, looking at that frozen frame. A young woman who'd made the hardest choice and paid the ultimate price. Archie? Wolfe's voice. Are you well? Fine. Just thinking. About people who tell the truth even when it costs them everything. I closed the laptop. Patricia Drummond knew she might die. She did it anyway. Courage is often fatal. That's why it's called courage, rather than pragmatism. Wolfe set down his newspaper. Will you send the video to her mother? Yes. She deserves to hear Patricia's voice again. Agreed. Wolfe reached for his beer. Did Miss Cho provide a final invoice? Sent it this morning. $5,000 for her time and expertise. Pay it. Her work was exemplary. Wolfe drank, then looked at me with unusual intensity. This case troubled you. A woman died trying to do the right thing. The people who killed her were stealing from animals who can't defend themselves, and the person who orchestrated it all did it for revenge. I shook my head. Yeah, it troubled me. Justice was served. Justice is cold comfort when someone's dead. Yes, but it's better than injustice. Wolfe set down his glass. You want the world to be fair, Archie. It's an admirable impulse. But the world is neutral. It's humans who make it fair or unfair, just or unjust. Patricia Drummond chose justice. Grove and Marsh chose greed. Dr. Caspar chose revenge. We chose to expose the truth. Those are human choices, not cosmic inevitability. You saying we make our own meaning? I'm saying we're responsible for our choices. And Patricia Drummond made hers with courage. Wolfe picked up his book again. She'll be remembered. That's not nothing. I thought about that. A woman who'd died in a tiger cage, but who'd left behind evidence that brought down 3 killers and improved the lives of 300 animals. Not the legacy she'd have chosen, but a legacy nonetheless. My phone buzzed again. A text from Bertram Ashford. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. The conservatory opens to the public tomorrow for the first time since Patricia's death. We're dedicating the day to her memory. If you and Mr. Wolfe would like to attend, you'd be honored guests. I showed the message to Wolfe. Absolutely not. Public events with crowds and speeches and sentiment? I'd rather be boiled. He paused. You should go. Represent us appropriately. I'm not much for speeches either. Then go, say nothing, and observe. Someone should witness the result of our work. You just want me out of the house so you can read in peace. That too, he smiled slightly. Take the dogs. They enjoyed the conservatory. The next morning, I drove back to Westchester with Caesar and Loyal. The conservatory looked different in daylight, with crowds, families with children, couples walking hand in hand, people who came to see animals and didn't know about the murder, the theft, the conspiracy that had almost destroyed it all. Bertram met me at the entrance, looking healthier than I'd seen him, still grieving, still damaged, but standing upright. Mr. Goodwin, thank you for coming, and you brought the pack. Caesar and Loyal received the kind of attention usually reserved for celebrities. Children asked to pet them. I allowed it, carefully. Staff members recognized them from our previous visits. Even some of the animal keepers, new hires, people Bertram had brought in to replace Grove and Marsh, came over to admire them. They're beautiful, one keeper said. A young woman with kind eyes. What are their names? Caesar and Loyal. They're part of Mr. Wolfe's household. Mr. Wolfe, the detective who solved Patricia's case? That's him. Tell him thank you, from all of us. She smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. Patricia was the reason I got into this field. She trained me when I was an intern. She taught me that every animal has dignity, that our job is to honor that dignity with everything we do. She knelt, scratched Caesar's ears. She'd be glad to know the truth came out. We walked through the facility. The tiger habitat, Patricia's memorial sanctuary, had a plaque now, in memory of Patricia Drummond, who gave her life protecting the animals she loved. Her courage, dedication, and integrity will never be forgotten. May all who enter here remember that truth is worth fighting for. Raja and Sari, the Sumatran tigers, lounged in the sunlight, looking regal and indifferent. They'd killed Patricia, or seemed to, but they'd been tools, not murderers. Just tigers being tigers, confused by sedation and instinct. Near the bear habitat, I found a smaller memorial, a bench with Patricia's name engraved on it, surrounded by flowers left by staff and visitors. Someone had left a notebook there, leather-bound, new, a symbolic replacement for the one that had been destroyed. Loyal sniffed it carefully, then sat beside the bench as if standing guard. Good boy, I said quietly. We stayed for an hour, watching people enjoy the animals, children learning about conservation, families making memories. The conservatory lived, Patricia's dream survived, even if she didn't. On the drive home, I thought about beasts and cages, about instinct and reason, about people who choose truth even when it costs them everything. Wolfe was right. Justice was better than injustice. But God, it was expensive. 6 months later, on a Wednesday evening in early spring, I sat at my desk while Wolfe read about Montenegro and Fritz prepared something that smelled like paradise. The trial had concluded 2 weeks earlier. Dr. Helena Caspar was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and attempted terrorism. She'd receive life without parole. Dr. Nathan Grove and Claudia Marsh had cooperated with prosecutors, and received reduced sentences, 15 years each, eligible for parole in 10. The conservatory thrived. Bertram Ashford had retired, selling the facility to a conservation non-profit that promised to honor Patricia's vision. The new management had implemented every one of her recommendations. Animals that had shown signs of chronic stress were either rehabilitated or humanely euthanized. Enrichment programs were expanded. Financial oversight was rigorous. And Patricia's mother had donated her daughter's complete research archives to a university program studying animal welfare. Future generations of conservationists would learn from her observations, her dedication, her refusal to accept cruelty masked as care. My phone buzzed. A message from Angela Cho. Cracked another impossible computer case today. Thought of Patricia. She'd have loved this. Evidence hidden in encrypted files that nobody thought could be accessed. Justice served because someone was meticulous enough to document everything. Thanks for letting me be part of her story. I smiled, typed back. She'd be glad her work mattered. Wolfe looked up from his book. Good news? Just a reminder that some cases matter more than others. All cases matter. Some simply cost more in human terms. He closed his book. Are you still troubled by Patricia Drummond's death? Sometimes, when I think about people who do the right thing and pay for it, then think also about the 300 animals whose lives improved because she spoke up. Think about the conservatory that operates honestly now because she documented dishonesty. Think about the justice that was served because she refused to be silent. Wolfe reached for his beer. She chose truth over safety. That's the highest form of courage. Still got her killed. Yes, but silence would have killed her spirit, and that would have been worse. Wolfe drank. Death is inevitable, Archie. How we live until that moment, that's what matters. I looked at the dogs scattered through the office, Caesar at the door, Mars in the hall, Apollo on patrol, Minerva upstairs, Diana somewhere invisible, and Loyal under my desk, the pack that kept our chaos at bay. Instinct leashed by reason, beasts contained by choice, chaos held back by order. That's what civilization was, a daily decision to be better than our basest impulses. Patricia Drummond had made that choice until the moment she died. Wolfe made it every day in his own stubborn way. Even the dogs made it, choosing pack over prey, loyalty over instinct. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that's all we could do. Choose order, tell the truth, and hope it mattered. Fritz says dinner in 10 minutes, I announced. Excellent. I'm famished. Wolfe stood, heading for the dining room. And Archie, tomorrow I'll need you to, let me guess, do something that requires leaving the brownstone while you stay here with your orchids and your beer. Precisely. I knew you'd understand. I watched him go, then looked at Loyal, who watched me back with those intelligent brown eyes. Yeah, boy, I know, he's impossible, but he's right about most things. Loyal's tail thumped once against the floor. Agreement. Outside, spring rain began to fall on the city. Inside the brownstone, order reigned. Beer in the fridge, orchids on the roof, dogs at their posts, a genius in the dining room. And somewhere in the world, beasts in cages, waiting for someone to prove they deserved better. Patricia Drummond had tried. She'd died trying. But because she tried, 300 animals lived better lives. Because she documented everything, 3 killers went to prison. Because she chose truth over safety, justice was served. Not a bad legacy for a woman who died in a tiger cage. Not bad at all. I closed my notebook, shut down my computer, and went to join Wolfe for dinner. The brownstone was quiet, orderly, safe, and in that safety we'd keep fighting the chaos, one case at a time, one truth at a time, one act of courage at a time. It's what we did. It's what Patricia would have wanted. And somewhere, in the memory of a woman who'd loved animals enough to die for them, that had to be enough.